Chuan still couldn't figure out how the thing in Building 1 had become what it was. Just remembering their last encounter made his stomach turn. Even a zombie should look vaguely human. This one barely did. Last time it put a hole through his head in an instant. This time he came prepared. Let's see if he can handle my axe squad. He stayed holed up in Building 5, mind linked to his corpse puppets. With a 3-kilometer range, there was no need to step onto the battlefield. And with a monster like that, close combat was suicide. 10 corpse puppets pushed through the lobby doors and began a floor-by-floor sweep. Chuan took it slow, clearing every corner, double-checking the ceilings. The mutant's body plan was odd. It had thrown away the human stance for taloned limbs and raw muscle, scuttling across walls and ceilings like a spider. 4 floors. Nothing. Did already bail? His frown deepened as the team climbed to the 5th. They slipped into an apartment and missed the thing clinging above the doorframe. For claws sunk into plaster like steel nails, silent as dust. Its feral eyes tracked the puppets below. From Chuan's remote perspective, it was in the perfect blind spot. Where are you? Don't tell me you ran. He didn't want that outcome. Loose in the shadows, this blood-colored freak would be a top-tier killer. A whisper of air. A crimson blur dropped. Bang! One puppet went flying, helmet nearly split in two, skull almost crushed. The headgear saved it, barely, and it staggered back into formation. Chuan snapped commands. The squad wheeled and brought their fire axes down in howling arcs. If Ji Rushua were here, she would have named it at a glance. A liquor. In her last life, these things butchered early survivors by the thousands. Territorial fury lit the liquor's movements. It danced through the puppets, claws flashing, bodies thudding into walls. Chuan sneered. Evolution or not, it hadn't grown a better brain. Hold if the head's intact. Swing. A claw punched clean through a puppet's torso. Chuan locked that puppet's arms around the impaled limb and hammered an axe at the liquor skull. More puppets closed in, blades chopping without pause. Speed or not, boxed in on all sides, it started eating hits. Chuan had trained for this. Angles, follow through, repeat strikes on the same point. Ordinary zombies didn't hit hard enough to carve deep, but a swarm could add up. Flesh flew. The liquor's muscle was dense. Most blows only gouged meat. Chuan redirected 3 puppets to stack strikes on one spot. Crack, splutch. On the 3rd consecutive chop, the arm came off. The liquor shrieked, kicked off the floor, and skittered up to the ceiling. Throw! Axes thumped up into plaster and empty air. Free to the ring, the liquor moved like lightning. It slipped past the barrage, smashed through a window, and vanished outside. Through puppet eyes, Chuan watched it run straight up the exterior wall like it was flat ground. And then in a blink, it was gone. Damn it! It got away. Chuan watched the crimson blur vanish, past the window, and swore under his breath. 10 corpse puppets, helmets, axes, a careful sweep, and still the thing slipped the net. It ran along a sheer wall like it was flat ground. Fast. Purpose-built to kill. He was suddenly grateful for the helmets. Without them, he'd have lost half the squad in seconds. Worse than failing to finish, it was tipping it off. Now the monster would be cautious. Maybe vengeful. Its claws could anchor anywhere. Its body moved in silence. One-on-one, Chuan wouldn't last a heartbeat. If it left the block for good, fine. If it stayed and stalked Building 5, that was a time bomb. Stairs, doors, hall guards. None of that mattered to something that could sprint up a facade and drop in from the ceiling. And if it found little Chi-Chi, he forced himself to breathe, pushed the frustration down, and went straight to work. He posted 3 of his strongest corpse puppets on a constant patrol inside Building 5, armed and rotating floors, so anything slipping in would trigger an immediate response. Then he studied the gouges the zombie had left in the wall. Deep, clean. The crystal core inside that thing had to dwarf any large or agile types he'd seen. Devour it, and his own power would spike. For now, the only answer was grind. Keep the patrols up. Hunt other evolved types. 2 cores down had made him confident. Today reminded him confidence wasn't strength. If something worse showed up, a handful of low-tier puppets wouldn't save him. His control radius was out to 3 kilometers now. It helped. It wasn't enough. Up on the 7th floor, Ji Rushue's telekinesis had inched forward too. She floated 2 little dolls around the room, tracing clumsy loops. As the former Empress, the toys did nothing for her pride, but they honored Lu Chuan's effort. And, she had to admit, they trained her will. It became quietly fun. Sensing him in the hall, she let the dolls drop into her arms. Lu Chuan stepped in and found little Chi-Chi grinning over plastic toys, eyes clear as glass. The sight untied a knot in his chest. Little one, he thought, this world is broken. Grow up and don't let it break you. He looked at her and felt purpose come back into focus. The city outside was ruin. This room still held warmth. His face hardened. He turned to the window, then left. Ji Rushue frowned. He hadn't gone scavenging in days. Now, he was pacing in and out. He returned with planks and nails and started boarding the window, piece by piece. That blood-red monster didn't walk upright, but could climb like a nightmare, and 7 floors meant nothing to it. Hallway patrols wouldn't catch a ceiling crawler coming in from the outer wall. He couldn't guard the window every second, so he sealed it. Crude, but it killed the element of surprise and bought Chi-Chi's safety. From the bed, Ji Rushua watched, puzzled. Her zombie dad had stayed home for days, and now he was shuttering the place? Was he spooked by an evolved zombie and trying to hide from the chaos? Given what she knew, it made sense. Low-tier zombies dreaded mutated ones. Still boarding windows? She sighed and shook her head. My zombie dad is such a coward.
Hey everyone, Fire Scale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Ji Rushua didn't look down on her zombie dad in her heart. After all, she was aware that being an ordinary zombie, surviving in this end-of-the-world scenario, was already a very difficult thing. In Ji Rushua's memory, as more and more evolved zombies and fierce beasts appeared, low-level ordinary zombies were like ants on the roadside, no different from cannon fodder. Moreover, since the Blood Moon, many evolvers have also emerged among humans. At first, humans could only flee in panic when faced with these ordinary zombies, but as they continued to evolve, even humans could easily hunt these low-level zombies. Without strength or status, it was already very difficult for ordinary zombies to live, let alone taking care of a baby like herself. Furthermore, Ji Rushua was very clear in her heart that her dad did this for her safety. After all, the bedroom on the 7th floor was her living space, and Dad also hoped she wouldn't be disturbed by other zombies. Looking at her zombie dad who kept staring at the wooden planks, a wave of warmth flowed through Ji Rushua's heart. Even in this harsh apocalypse, even when faced with countless pressures and life-or-death crises that could arrive at any moment. Even though her zombie dad was terribly afraid of the apocalypse and too scared to leave the house, he never thought about abandoning this burden. Although he didn't have enough strength, he still tried his best to find ways to protect her safety. Even though her zombie dad was a zombie, he had already surpassed most people in this apocalypse. At least to Ji Rushua, whether in a past life or this life, it's the first time she's experienced such a profound father's love. Zombie dad, just wait for me. It won't be long before you won't have to be so worried and scared anymore. As long as I'm given enough time to grow, then I'll be the one to protect you. Looking at the silhouette of her zombie dad, Ji Rushua's eyes emanated a determination beyond her years. The arrival of the apocalypse has made humanity lose too much. Ji Rushua didn't want to lose the precious family love she had never gained in both her lifetimes. Bang, bang, bang. Lu Chuan kept hammering nails and finally finished fortifying the window. However, Lu Chuan didn't completely seal it. He left 2 openings for light and ventilation. Although safety was very important, Lu Chuan didn't want little Chi-Chi to live in such a stifling and oppressive environment at her young age, especially since the bedroom was now boarded up with wooden planks, providing some level of defense. Looking at the bedroom window, Lu Chuan nodded in satisfaction. That blood-red creature was indeed strong, but even it would take some effort to break through the glass and layers of wooden planks to get inside. This blood-red creature's attack on zombies was like a massacre, but its strength was not as great as that of a bulky zombie. At least the defense of this bedroom window would buy some reaction time. Time whisked by, and 3 more days had passed. Chuan had the corpse puppets continuously search the area, but since the blood-red creature disappeared, it hadn't shown up again. Not seeing that terrifying figure, Chuan let out a slight sigh of relief. Nonetheless, Chuan didn't let his guard down, and still had 2 corpse puppets patrol, building 5 constantly. After all, these zombies neither eat nor drink nor need rest, and he didn't have to pay them. Suddenly, Chuan felt a mental wave in his mind. One of the corpse puppets, searching for supplies at a distance, had made a new discovery. In order to gather resources, a corpse puppet reached a small shop 2 streets away, and after prizing open the door, it began gathering supplies. Damn, why is there someone in this shop? Doesn't matter, he's unlucky to run into us. Let's kill him. At that moment, a few human survivors rushed in from outside, all wielding steel pipes and kitchen knives. Each of them glared fiercely at the corpse puppet, but when Chuan controlled the corpse puppet to turn around, they all froze. Damn, is this actually a zombie? The few who had just charged in were startled when they saw the corpse puppet controlled by Chuan. The pale body and blood-colored pupils were unmistakable indicators of a zombie. The aggressive few immediately stiffened in place, their eyes filled with fear. Even though the apocalypse had been going on for a while, human survivors still had an innate fear of zombies. Chuan was also taken aback by the group that burst in, not expecting there to be survivors hidden nearby. Not wanting to stir up more trouble, Chuan planned to control the corpse puppet to leave the shop. Look at you guys being scared. It's just a zombie. What's there to fear? Among them, a somewhat brawny man holding an iron rod charged at Chuan's corpse puppet. Chuan shook his head helplessly. He hadn't wanted to cause more trouble, but now he had no option but to control the corpse puppet to wield the fire axe in defense. Bam! The axe and iron rod clashed, and the moment they met, Chuan was greatly surprised. The corpse puppet he chose was fairly strong-bodied, and zombies were generally stronger than average humans. But Chuan didn't expect this man's strength to be so immense. The force from a steel pipe was so powerful that it left the corpse puppet's arm numb. The fire axe wasn't even firmly gripped and was knocked out of its hand. The man was decisive in attack, quickly following up the move, and before Chuan could react, the steel pipe smashed down directly. Bam! With a dull thud, the corpse puppet's head broke open like a watermelon. The man approached the body of Chuan's corpse puppet and contemplatively looked at the fire axe that was knocked away. The world really is outrageous. Even zombies are using weapons now. Could this be some new type of evolved zombie? Before long, he lost interest in that, turning to urge his companions behind him. All right, let's quickly move these supplies. We might attract an evolved zombie if we take too long. Upon hearing this, the group promptly got busy, continuously stuffing their backpacks with all sorts of food and bottled water. In this apocalypse, finding an unlooted store was just like a paradise. Luckily, we have Gongzi here. Otherwise, we wouldn't find so much food. Yeah, we're evolved zombies to us. With Big Brother Gongzi's divine power, it'd be handled in one strike. Seeing the robust man defeat the zombie with one strike, the companions praised him while they scavenged supplies. After all, having a powerful companion significantly increased the chances of survival. The man known as Gongzi wore a hint of pride on his face upon receiving the admiration and commendation. I didn't expect that after such a long time, there would still be survivors alive nearby. In building number 5, Chuan frowned slightly, feeling a bit surprised as he recalled the scene just now. It's been more than a month since the zombie apocalypse outbreak. Especially recently, Chuan has barely seen any living people. Besides the unlucky guy who was killed by an agile zombie last time, he hasn't seen any other humans for a long time. The empty streets were only patrolled by one mindless zombie after another. But unexpectedly, this time he saw several people directly. It seems that the number of humans surviving the zombie crisis is not that small after all. However, because these zombies are full of bloodlust, most people can only hide in the dark. But thinking back to the man who fought with his corpse puppet just now, Chuan's expression turned extremely solemn. Even though that man appeared to be more robust, relatively speaking, than the few people around him, it was absolutely impossible for him to have such formidable strength. The corpse puppets he selected were all physically strong types, and after turning into zombies, their strength had been enhanced to a certain degree. Even just the zombies themselves wouldn't have trouble dealing with such ordinary survivors. Furthermore, the corpse puppets were under his control and could use weapons against enemies. But he didn't expect that after clashing with that man, even the fire axe in his hand was knocked away, which is simply a natural divine power. Reflecting on his experiences during this time, Chuan couldn't help but speculate silently. All the changes seemed to trace back to that blood moon night, after which zombies seemed to have evolved, and it seems that different evolutionary paths have emerged. The blood moon in the sky, bathed in moonlight, affected not just zombies. Chuan was somewhat skeptical, wondering if other creatures had undergone the same changes. The mysterious man encountered today might very well be an evolved human. Such terrifying power is probably something only evolved creatures could unleash. Chuan couldn't help but feel that the changes in this world seemed far more complex than he had imagined. Previously, he had always been focused on those evolved zombies, but now it seems that as the blood moon time passes, more and more peculiar creatures are going to appear in this world. Forget it. It seems that the corpse puppets can't be sent to that area anymore. To Chuan, evolved humans were scarier than zombies. Because zombies have no brains, he could still use his corpse puppets for wave attacks or set traps to kill them. But the same tactics wouldn't work so well on humans. Currently, Chuan doesn't want to stir up more trouble. He only hopes to have stronger power, live well in this apocalypse, and let little Chi-Chi grow up healthy and happy. Humans have extremely complex thoughts and high intelligence, and the subtleties that zombies don't detect don't mean that human survivors won't find them. Chuan doesn't want to risk being targeted by these human survivors for the sake of a bit of resources. After all, he is not a lone wolf. He can take his corpse puppets and escape anytime, anywhere. In his bedroom, there is a baby little Chi-Chi, which means Chuan has to consider the little one's safety. Currently, Chuan only hopes to continue searching via his corpse puppets and kill a few isolated evolved zombies, using their crystal cores to gain more strength and power. After all, the apocalypse is becoming increasingly complex, and only by having sufficiently strong power can he and the little one continue to live safely. As for what changes will happen in the outside world, Chuan doesn't really care. He himself mysteriously came to this world and was bitten by a zombie out of nowhere. For Chuan, as long as they don't disturb his and the little one's life, the world can do whatever it wants. It has nothing to do with him. After the interlude of meeting human survivors, a few days passed in the blink of an eye. Chuan has stopped collecting resources for now, as the efficiency of these few corpse puppets is too high, filling every room in building number 5 with various supplies. These resources are completely enough for little Chi-Chi to use, and hoarding too much also has no meaning. After all, as time goes by, these resources will eventually expire. If you hoard too much and can't use it, it's a waste of time and effort, and might even attract some unnecessary trouble. In the 7th floor bedroom, during this time, Shue has been continuously practicing the glazed breathing technique day and night, absorbing the energy factors in the air, which have continuously enhanced her strength. In particular, the originally very weak telekinesis has now greatly improved. Shue initially felt exhausted controlling a leaf, but now she's even trying to use telekinesis to lift her own body. In this world, it would be too inconvenient not to be able to live independently, and at least a certain level of survival ability is required when the apocalypse comes. Her zombie dad seems like a very ordinary low-level zombie at present, and Shue also understands that she absolutely cannot just be a baby lying in bed. She must quickly adapt to the apocalyptic life, or else they might face a crisis sooner or later. Ji Rushue is constantly using her power for crawling training on the bed in the bedroom. With the glazed breathing technique's body transformation over time, Ji Rushue's strength has far surpassed that of her peers. As Ji Rushue gains more control over her body, her crawling speed on the bed increases rapidly. Ji Rushue finally began to use telekinesis to balance her body. Then, with the support of telekinesis, she gradually shifted from crawling on all fours to walking upright. If she directly used telekinesis for flying, it would consume a lot of energy. But using telekinesis to maintain momentum and rapidly learn upright walking wasn't much of a problem. And since she was always supported by surrounding telekinesis, Ji Rushue didn't have to worry about falling. With such assured learning conditions, she quickly began walking upright. Creak! Just then, Chuan pushed open the door and walked in. Seeing the scene on the bed, Chuan was immediately shocked, his jaw dropping. Chuan even doubted if he was hallucinating. Little Chi-Chi was only a few months old, and now she was already walking upright on the bed. He didn't even know when the little one learned to crawl, and now she was starting to learn how to walk. After the initial shock, Chuan's eyes were filled with delight, and he couldn't control the upward curve of his mouth. Although Chuan was determined to help the little one grow up healthy and happy, he was very aware that the little one lived in this post-apocalyptic world, an unchangeable fact. So even if he could always protect little Chi-Chi, the little one would eventually have to learn to adapt to life in the post-apocalyptic world. Though he had this thought in mind, Chuan was not prepared for the little one to start learning to adapt to life in the apocalypse just yet. Even though he didn't know Chi-Chi's precise age, from her size, Chuan guessed she might just be a few months old. After all, the little one wasn't weaned yet, and could only lie in her crib, unable to move. Originally, Chuan thought it would be a long time before the little one learned to walk. But surprisingly, after a few days of not paying attention, the little one had taught herself. Seeing little Chi-Chi toddling crookedly on the bed, Chuan quickly picked her up and placed her in the living room to practice walking. Because the mattress was very soft and the bed provided an uneven surface, even if the little one learned to walk, it would take more time to master walking on flat ground. Directly practicing on the flat ground in the living room, the progress would be greater. As for Ji Rushue, whether in the living room or on the ground, she could master either with time. After all, her telekinesis was now capable of temporarily levitating her body, so balancing herself was a small matter. Ji Rushue initially walked a bit clumsily, needing time to adapt to standing and moving with this body. But quickly, as she got used to this body, combined with the strength she honed, Ji Rushue was walking very steadily. Ji Rushue looked up and saw the zombie dad's shocked expression, feeling a bit proud inside. If not fearing the zombie dad's shock, she could even turn a somersault. Standing aside, Chuan was impressed by how quickly the little one adapted to walking and with such stability. Little Chi-Chi finally grew up a bit. At this moment, Chuan felt a sense of indescribable achievement. For the little one to walk upright at such a young age, she was completely ahead of her peers. My daughter has the makings of an empress. But after practicing for a while, Ji Rushue stopped. Given her current physical condition, relying solely on her body's strength to maintain upright walking was difficult. To balance her body, she would need to constantly expend telekinesis. Even though her age had broken through considerably over this period, she couldn't sustain constant consumption and naturally couldn't continue walking upright. Chuan, seeing this, thought Ji Rushue was tired from learning to walk upright. Chuan quickly picked the little one up and placed her on the living room sofa to rest. Understanding the principle of gradual progress, Chuan didn't expect the little one to transition from lying in her crib to walking upright in a single day. That would be too much. Chuan himself took a steel machete and walked to the balcony to practice knife techniques. After consuming crystal core, Chuan's body had evolved to some extent. His speed, reaction time, and strength had improved, and as he swung the steel machete, its blade cut through the air with a whooshing sound. The silver sheen of the blade flashed continuously in the air, giving Lu Chuan the demeanor of a martial arts master. Regardless of past or present, Lu Chuan had never undergone martial arts training. His current practice was merely imitation based on memories of martial arts movies from his past life, swinging the machete, following simple moves. Lu Chuan felt that as long as he was fast and powerful enough, even a brick could be effective. With long periods of training, Lu Chuan could feel his proficiency with the machete increasing, becoming more familiar with wielding it. Though compared to true experts, his skills were crude and full of flaws. But Lu Chuan didn't mind, wondering, no matter how good the knife skills are, wouldn't you be afraid if even zombies can wield a knife? The sound of the blade cutting through the air caught Ji Rushua's attention. Looking at Lu Chuan practicing on the balcony, she was a bit surprised. Is Zombie Dad enhancing his skills? Ji Rushua had already decided her zombie dad was just an ordinary zombie. Even after the blood moon, he hadn't awakened any extraordinary abilities. But Ji Rushua understood her zombie dad had a significant difference compared to ordinary zombies. That was his human-like consciousness, his greatest advantage. After all, other ordinary zombies wouldn't think or use tools, as long as he held a sharp blade. Even though he couldn't handle powerful evolved zombies, he had a significant advantage among ordinary low-level zombies. Ji Rushua secretly nodded, realizing her zombie dad seemed lacking in power, but was quite smart. However, these knife techniques were so trashy. In her past life as the human queen during the apocalypse, Ji Rushua had experienced countless battles. She held outstanding insights and experience in close combat and weaponry. Moreover, she honed many powerful martial techniques later on. In Ji Rushua's eyes, her zombie dad's knife practice looked intimidating but was actually full of flaws. Against an opponent with greater fighting power, her zombie dad would be instantly beaten. These flashy moves lacked any real combat effectiveness, exerting energy without result, a complete waste. While Lu Chuan was on the balcony, swinging the machete, seeing little Chi-Chi staring intently at him, he felt proud. Lu Chuan thought the little one was drawn to his knife techniques, and he swung even harder. Watching the zombie father tirelessly wielding a machete on the balcony, Ji Rushua finally understood why she could hear all kinds of clattering noises from downstairs every day when she was in bed. Thinking of this, Ji Rushua felt a sudden realization. No wonder the zombie father hadn't left the house in the past few days. He must have sensed the crisis outside and was practicing combat skills in the house. Although the zombie father's swordsmanship was quite unsightly, there was no denying that it was indeed an effective way to strengthen his abilities. Outside, the zombies mutated by the Blood Moon mutation had all evolved, possessing formidable combat power, and they would also undergo some significant changes. But her zombie father hadn't changed at all until now. Obviously one of the most ordinary low-level cannon fodder zombies. So, tirelessly waving swords, improving his skill with the blade, and strengthening his attack and defense as much as possible was not a bad approach. At least in Ji Rushua's memories of her previous life, many survivors would work out to strengthen their bodies for more and better stamina when facing zombies. As an ordinary zombie without special abilities, it's only through such simple methods that he can improve his survival rate in this apocalypse. Ji Rushua watched Lu Chuan practicing his machete swings, and for a moment, her mind wandered elsewhere. And Lu Chuan, seeing Ji Rushua watching him so intently, thought the little girl was interested in these things. For a moment, Lu Chuan wielded the machete even more powerfully. The sound of it cutting through the air echoed in the space. I didn't expect the little one to be interested in such violent things. It seems I need to practice more diligently, so I can teach her this set of techniques when she grows up, Lu Chuan thought proudly. In this apocalypse, the only method Lu Chuan could think of was to simply increase survival chances. The little girl, being a girl interested in handling knives and swords, was a good thing in Lu Chuan's eyes. After all, the apocalypse is very cruel and won't be lenient because of your age or gender. Lu Chuan was also happy to share his experiences with her when she grew up, at least to improve the little one's chance of survival. In this brutal apocalypse, Chuan still felt that enhancing survival ability was more necessary. In the following days, Chuan just let little Chi-Chi play by herself in the living room. After all, the windows in the 7th floor bedroom were boarded up to prevent that bloody creature, so the lighting wasn't good. The 6th floor living room was much brighter, and as he often trained in combat there, it was more spacious. Chuan practiced his close combat skills and blade techniques on the balcony, while Rushua practiced upright walking in the living room, also honing her telekinesis abilities. Accompanied by Chuan, little Rushua walked more steadily each day. Under Chuan's watch, little Chi-Chi was progressing so rapidly compared to ordinary children, it was almost incredible, like a prodigy. Yet Rushua's eyes became more determined, with not a hint of childish innocence in her clear black and white pupils. As the apocalypse progressed, Rushua felt a sense of crisis growing inside her, becoming more anxious. After all, since the blood moon mutation, the whole world had become fraught with danger. The abundant release of energy factors in the air caused many zombies to undergo a series of mutations and evolution. And now, this was just the beginning. The changes would become more terrifying later on. Meanwhile, many other creatures joined the ranks of evolution. For an ordinary cannon fodder like her zombie father, there might soon be no room for survival. So Rushua knew she had to grow up quickly. At the very least, she needed to master upright walking quickly to have some decent mobility. Only in this way could she help the zombies, and at least not be a burden in this apocalypse. In such a gradually more brutal apocalypse, an ordinary unevolved zombie, plus an infant not yet able to move freely, seemed like a catastrophic start to Rushua. As an Empress, if she wanted to turn the tide with such a start, she had no other option but to find a way to quickly enhance her cultivation progress. Roar! Just as Chuan and Rushua were methodically improving themselves, suddenly a furious roar came from outside the building. Upon hearing the roar, Chuan, who was watching Rushua walk, immediately reacted. In the next second, Chuan's vision shifted, and he controlled a corpse puppet to swiftly arrive at the scene. He saw, among the greenery of Sunshine District, 2 zombies who had obviously undergone mutation and evolution post-blood moon mutation, fighting incessantly. One of the zombies was very large, standing nearly 2.5 meters tall, with muscle-bound strength. Especially its 2 strong arms, like bulging dragons. Its punches stirred the air with a tigerish wind, causing a chilling sensation. With its arm swing, it could even smash a crater into the ground. This was precisely a tank-type zombie that Chuan had seen and even absorbed a crystal core from. The other one was even more familiar to Chuan, a terrifying blood-colored creature with a quadrupedal stance and a low posture. Though it didn't have the massive size and visual power of the tank type, it was extremely agile, and each attack was equally remarkable. The sharp claws streaked through the air. If it were an ordinary zombie, it would probably have been killed several times over. This uniquely postured zombie appeared very strange to Chuan. To have evolved into such a monstrous form, other zombies might even loathe it. However, the combat power of this blood-colored monster was indeed terrifying. Even Chuan's corpse puppet team relied on fully enclosed helmets. Otherwise, he joked that not many would have survived entering the building. But through the corpse puppet's eyes, Chuan felt a bit puzzled. Where did this big zombie come from after he blew one to bits a while ago? Is zombie evolution this frequent? Most crucially, Chuan noticed that the wounds on that blood-colored monster zombie were healed. Even the arm that Chuan's control corpse puppet had cut off had grown back. The battle between these 2 powerful zombies was exceptionally frightening in its fury. Chuan surmised that these 2 evolved zombies were likely full of killing intent, probably to seize each other's crystal core. Thinking about the crystal core, Chuan's heart immediately warmed up. Although the 2 zombies were large and their attacks were extremely terrifying, but a hint of desire flashed in Chuan's eyes. As the saying goes, fortune is sought in risk. In the apocalypse, It's a battle of life and death. Either be killed by other zombies or human evolvers, or find a way to devour more crystal cores to gain a powerful body. These days, Chuan had not only been improving his combat skills, but also sending out corpse puppets to search for traces of evolved zombies. Unfortunately, he hadn't encountered any in the past few days, and now he finally came across two at once, which was an excellent opportunity. Moreover, that bloodied monster was simply a killer among zombies, moving silently with swift, ferocious attacks. In Chuan's view, this zombie, capable of scaling walls and leaping heights with ease, posed a far greater threat to him than the big-bodied zombie. He originally planned to find a way to eliminate this type of zombie, and today's encounter with two zombies fighting was like a pie fallen from the sky. What's more, if he could acquire the crystal cores of these two zombies, his own strength would surely make significant progress. The apocalypse is inherently cruel, and a fierce light flashed in Chuan's eyes. Get right to it. With this thought, Chuan immediately left the room, closing the door of the building. Shue also heard the zombie roars from outside and knew there must be a fierce battle between powerful, evolved zombies. However, what puzzled Shue was why her cannon fodder, Zombie Dad, pushed the door and left. He hadn't dared to go out these past few days. Why did he suddenly go out now? The roaring zombies outside sounded unusual. Going out to join the fun seemed like seeking death. Shue found this utterly bewildering, not knowing what madness her Zombie Dad was up to. Currently unable to move freely, Shue clearly couldn't go out to stop or help, so she could only silently pray inside. This Zombie Dad is truly worrisome, practicing some trash swordsmanship for a few days and really considering himself a master. Completely unaware of Chuan's evolutionary ability, Shue hadn't thought that although Chuan's body couldn't match the formidable melee power of those two zombies, he wasn't alone. On the way downstairs, Chuan began to gather his corpse puppet squad. Corpse puppets patrolling or searching in various places, now under Chuan's control, picked up fire axes, donned full-coverage motorcycle helmets, and stealthily approached the greenery of Sunshine Home. Now, those tank-type zombie and blood-color monster zombie were locked in a fierce and unyielding battle. At this point, their eyes were only on each other, not caring about the surrounding, wandering, ordinary zombies. After all, non-evolved low-level zombies were nothing more than cannon fodder for these mutated zombies and not even worth a fight. Because only evolved zombies had crystal cores, engaging the surrounding low-level zombies was just a waste of effort. Bang, bang, bang. The battle between these two zombies made Chuan's scalp tingle slightly. The blood-color monster zombie that had given him quite a bit of trouble was now moving with the same swiftness. Even on all fours, its speed was unaffected. The terrifying explosive force enabled it to keep maneuvering around the tank-type zombie, its terrifying claws launching attacks from time to time. However, the blood-color monster, which could easily kill ordinary zombies, had finally met its match with this tank-type zombie. The tank-type was extremely robust and, most importantly, had strong defense. This massive zombie was tough-skinned and thick-fleshed, making it hard for the blood-color monster to inflict effective damage. The sickle-like shark claws kept swinging, but were blocked by the tank zombie's tough arms. The claws that could easily rip apart a normal zombie's head could only leave shallow blood marks on the tank zombie's arm. Although the tank zombie was bulky and wielded great strength, each slam could create deep craters in the ground. However, the blood-color monster was exceptionally agile, and the tank zombie's attacks mostly missed. Watching the two zombies continue to struggle, Chuan was not in a hurry, patiently controlling the corpse puppet squad lurking in the shadows. Both of these creatures were incredibly powerful, and it wouldn't be easy to determine a winner in a short time. Sure enough, as Chuan had expected, these two zombies were tenacious opponents, making it difficult to determine a victor in battle. And after a prolonged struggle, the fight finally began to heat up. The greenery in the community had long been destroyed by the devastation caused by these two powerful zombies. The ground was full of scars, riddled with craters, and the surrounding vegetation was wilting. These two powerful evolved zombies had each sustained injuries after relentless close-quarters combat. The blood-colored, skin-shedding, bloodthirsty monster zombie aggressively leapt onto the large zombie's back. Its sickle-like claws directly pierced the weak defensive part of the tank-type zombie's shoulder joint. Then, using its terrifying speed and strength, it rapidly tore and ripped, detaching one of the large zombie's limbs in no time. However, the large zombie was enraged, slamming a retaliatory punch that broke the zombie monster's left leg. Unfortunately for the blood-color monster, even though the left leg was injured, being on all fours didn't hinder its movement. However, with one limb less, the tank zombie's combat ability started to drop sharply. As the saying goes, arms are two doors. Now that one door was cut off, the tank zombie's combat power was reduced by more than half. The bloodthirsty monster continued to harass and attack with its rapid speed. Its claws were incredibly sharp, and without one arm, the tank zombie was continually scratched by them. Boom! With a loud crash, the large zombie plummeted to the ground, and the battle between the two great evolved zombies concluded with the blood-colored monster's victory. Although the tank-type zombie was robust, without one arm, it couldn't defend against the bloodthirsty monster's continuous attacks, and its massive body was nearly dismembered. As the blood-colored monster prepared to retrieve the crystal core, Chuan immediately gave the order, and the corpse puppet squad that had been lurking around quickly surrounded it. Roar! Seeing this, the blood-colored monster roared in anger, trying to use its aura to drive away the corpse puppets. However, the corpse puppets under Chuan's control were not intimidated by its aura, blindly swinging their fire axes at it. Because this was an open area, the blood-colored monster couldn't wall walk or roof run, losing its greatest advantage. Yet, it was unwilling to give up the hard-won crystal core, and a moment of hesitation allowed the corpse puppet squad to encircle it, their sharp fire axes hacking away mercilessly. Thud! Thud! The corpse puppets controlled by Chuan wielded the fire axe with fierce strength. By the time the licker realized something was wrong and tried to escape, its legs were already severed by the corpse puppets, and it could only struggle along the ground with its front claws, moving significantly slower. Chuan didn't want to miss the opportunity to let this monster escape, and he immediately ordered the corpse puppets to rush up. In a flurry of axe blows, they nearly hacked it into mincemeat. After extracting the crystal cores of the two evolved zombies with the corpse puppets, Chuan was overjoyed. 2 evolved zombie crystal cores, all acquired. The commotion caused by the zombie battle was too great, so Chuan, to avoid being noticed by anyone with ill intentions, controlled the corpse puppet squad to quickly return. Receiving the crystal cores from the blood-covered corpse puppet squad, Chuan took a look and found that these 2 crystal cores had already turned mostly red. Chuan nodded silently to himself. Indeed, the evolution of zombies was just as he had guessed. By continuously devouring the crystal cores from the brains of their kind, zombies could become more powerful. Similarly, the more crystal cores they devoured, the redder the crystal core in a zombie's brain would become. Earlier, when I controlled the corpse puppet squad to scavenge, the 2 evolved zombies had clearly devoured quite a few crystal cores. Their combat power was already incredibly strong, and the crystal core in their brain had turned mostly red. Looking at the 2 crystal cores in his hand and reflecting on his recent experiences, Chuan was able to roughly deduce the current level of the zombies. Zombies that had mutated and evolved after the Blood Moon Night would form a crystal core in their brains, which was pure white before they devoured others of their kind. As more crystal cores of their kind were devoured, the crystal core's color would become increasingly red. Most likely, when this crystal core completely transforms to red, a quantitative change might lead to a qualitative change, and it's possible they could reach the next level. However, Chuan did not know to what extent a zombie's power would increase once the core turned fully red. Perhaps it would be enough to crush other zombies effortlessly. Chuan stopped contemplating these matters, thinking he could just take it one step at a time and then see what happens. The allure of the crystal core was something Chuan could no longer suppress. He quickly controlled all the corpse puppets to guard the stairwell, while he himself went up to the third floor. The two crystal cores in his hand were like exquisitely polished crystals. The red and white hues were exceptionally striking. Chuan quickly swallowed the crystal cores, and an overwhelming power instantly erupted within him. This terrifying evolutionary power surged into every part of Chuan's body, causing his flesh, bones, and blood vessels to undergo a massive transformation under this terrifying power. The wound on Chuan's shoulder began to slowly heal through successive evolutions, completely losing its initial ghastly form. The intensity of the power eruption from devouring these crystal cores had completely exceeded Chuan's expectations. The two zombies had already been evolved zombies, having devoured many of their kind. In addition, devouring the two crystals at once caused an overwhelming power that made Chuan's body tremble uncontrollably. Although Chuan's evolution was focused on mental faculties, and he wouldn't develop extremely thick arms or a massive build like a tank-type zombie, nor would he shed his skin and lose his ability to walk upright like a licker. Chuan's body remained about the same size as a normal human, but it also underwent some changes with the continued devouring of crystal cores. Chuan became a little taller than before, and overall he grew more robust. As a zombie, his skin originally had some bluish-black veins, which started to fade with the evolution. His muscles became very toned and sturdy, but since Chuan wore clothes all the time, the changes weren't too noticeable. Most crucially, Chuan's mental faculties were greatly impacted, and his brain felt as though it was about to explode. Refining two half-red and white crystal cores simultaneously had exceeded what Chuan's consciousness could currently bear. Although Chuan gritted his teeth and persisted, he could only endure for a moment before this terrifying force knocked him out directly. 7th floor living room. Ji Rushue, who had been anxiously awaiting, grew more and more eager. The howls of the zombies outside had stopped, mostly indicating that the battle was over. But her zombie dad hadn't returned after leaving for such a long time, which made her very anxious. It's been such a long time. Could something really have happened this time? What on earth were you thinking, getting involved in a fight between evolved zombies when you're just an ordinary zombie? It's over. It's really over this time. Just from the noises those two zombies made, you can tell they weren't evolved just once. Even typical evolved zombies wouldn't dare to join that level of battle. What were you trying to do? With no further movement at all, Ji Rushue was truly panicking now. In her view, her zombie dad had most likely fallen victim since those two zombies definitely had the power to instantly kill ordinary low-level zombies. What began as a calamity now felt like a complete loss. No one knows how much time had passed, but finally, Chuan felt his consciousness returning. Controlling his body, Chuan groggily opened his eyes. At this moment, his mind felt incredibly clear, and the swelling pain from earlier evolution had completely vanished. This sense of mental clarity was something he'd never felt before. Evidently, swallowing two crystal cores in succession had caused a significant transformation in his mental faculties. Chuan couldn't help but smile. The enhancement in his mental faculties meant he could expand his corpse puppet squad again. Though he didn't know what the future held, for now, it seemed like the strategy of overwhelming numbers was still very effective. The idea of mobsters beating a master applied here. Random hits could take down an evolved zombie. Additionally, Chuan felt as if there was an inexhaustible power within his body. Bam! Chuan raised his hand and punched the wooden panel of the wardrobe beside him, creating a big hole with just one punch. Next, Chuan kicked the wall next to him, peeling off the wall surface layer with one kick. Subsequently, Chuan quickly tested his jumping and running abilities, clearly feeling that his body was now significantly enhanced in all aspects compared to before. As evolution continued, his skin color became increasingly human-like and even grew tougher. Chuan pressed hard, feeling that although his skin wasn't as tough as a tank-type zombie's, it resembled leather and lighter scratches likely wouldn't leave damage on him. Chuan was now extremely satisfied with his body, with strength, speed, and reflexes all greatly enhanced. Even his defense improved significantly. Chuan, feeling the powerful changes in his body, could no longer restrain the smile on his face. With his current physical form, Chuan felt that even if he encountered other evolved zombies, he would have a certain level of self-protection. However, Chuan had a very clear understanding of his evolutionary path, which was focused on mental faculties. Now, compared to before, his mental faculties had greatly improved, and based on past experience, Chuan estimated that this time his mental evolution could allow him to control around 30 corpse puppets. Moreover, the range of his mental influence had frighteningly extended to about 8 kilometers, achieving a qualitative leap this time. Feeling the terrifying evolution, Chuan instinctively touched his head. Although he couldn't feel the crystal core inside his brain, Chuan estimated that after continuously devouring several zombie crystal cores, his strength had definitely increased significantly. Especially the 2 crystal cores he recently devoured brought the most noticeable increase in his power. Chuan estimated that after devouring them so many times, perhaps his crystal core inside his brain had turned purely red. If having a white crystal core means a first-tier zombie, then now that his crystal core has turned red, does it mean he has entered the second tier of red crystal core? Chuan thought for a while and didn't immediately control more zombies to replenish his corpse puppet squad. Now that his strength had greatly improved, a bold idea surged in Chuan's mind. Since I can control zombie movements, then evolved zombies should be controllable too. After all, they are zombies and they have no brains. The more Chuan thought about it, the more he believed in this possibility. After all, zombies have no brains, and his mind had become stronger. Suppressing zombies seemed like a logical thing. The thought rushed into his mind and could no longer be contained. Just thinking about it made Chuan feel very excited. After all, if he could control evolved zombies, then his combat power would dramatically increase. Evolved zombies and ordinary zombies are completely different. One evolved zombie is enough to kill a bunch of ordinary low-tier zombies in seconds. These corpse puppets, without his control, absolutely couldn't kill evolved zombies, not even hoping to pick them off. Although this world was very unfamiliar to him. After spending a long time here, Chuan had already understood that with the passage of time, all kinds of zombies would continuously break through. If he continued controlling ordinary zombies, who knows, even with large numbers, it would be hard to truly defeat the opponent. Thinking of this, Chuan became even more eager and quickly began controlling his corpse puppets to search for traces of evolved zombies. However, the number of evolved zombies is far less than ordinary zombies. Now Chuan's mind radiation range had reached a terrifying 8,000 meters. Within this 8,000-meter radius, he could control corpse puppets to search everywhere, which was much more powerful than before. Chuan was in a good mood now. The bloody monster hidden in the dark was successfully taken down by him. It counted as eliminating a major threat. That bloody monster was like a hidden assassin, moving silently and striking swiftly. Chuan feared one day he'd walk out the building, only to have his head pierced through by a tongue or witness a bloody monster climbing up to the 7th floor. Now he no longer needed to live in fear. Just as Chuan was very satisfied with the strong enhancement brought about by his successful evolution, Shue was rolling on the sofa in the living room with anxiety. After such a long time with no news, Shue had completely given up hope on Chuan. Those 2 zombies were so powerful, there was no doubt Zombie Dad was utterly defeated this time. Although Shue knew surviving in the apocalypse was extremely difficult. Zombies that haven't evolved might perish at any time, but she hadn't expected the moment to come so soon. Thinking back on the time spent with Zombie Dad, although they never communicated, they could feel each other's emotions. Although not like normal babies with their parents, as a human-zombie pair, their relationship was still warm and comforting. In this world, which had long lost all humanity, 2 lonely souls accompanied each other. This rare experience made Ji Rushue feel very beautiful. However, she didn't expect that after living 2 lives, the hard-earned fatherly love was snatched away again so quickly. Thinking about that person who always took care of her, possibly never to be seen again, even though Ji Rushue was once an unparalleled empress experienced in life and death, she still felt a bit sad. Just a little more time, then I can grow up, and maybe I'll be the one protecting you. Poor zombie dad. Why don't you wait for me a while longer? Why couldn't you wait for me to grow up? Crack, crack. Just as Ji Rushue was feeling despondent, the door lock suddenly made a sound. Ji Rushue was startled at first, but quickly realized, zombie dad is back. Because ordinary zombies would just crash into the door, they don't know how to unlock it. Sure enough, the next second the door opened, and a familiar figure appeared outside. Zombie dad isn't dead? Really? Am I hallucinating? This survival luck is too big. Ji Rushue was incredibly excited and elated. Earlier, those 2 evolved zombies caused such a commotion that even human survivors among evolvers might not easily handle it. Let alone her dad, just a regular low-tier zombie that would be mere cannon fodder, purely something to be killed in seconds. After so long with no signs, Ji Rushue believed zombie dad had met trouble. But unexpectedly, he stood in front of the door again like a miracle. At that moment, Ji Rushue suddenly had a feeling of gaining back what was lost. Originally, she thought, after witnessing the apocalypse's cruelty, she had become extremely indifferent. But she hadn't expected, in the absence of news from zombie dad, she would still feel panic. It turned out that unconsciously, she had really regarded him as family, rather than just a companion taking care of her daily needs. Extremely excited, Ji Rushue, upon seeing Chuan, jumped off the sofa immediately. She ran directly over to Chuan, though having just learned to walk upright, she wasn't proficient yet, currently walking wobbly and shaking, but it didn't stop her excitement. Watching Ji Rushue wobbling while running towards him, Chuan was also very excited and quickly squatted down ready to support her. After all, the little one had just learned to walk. Chuan feared she might fall. Daddy! The babbling sound reached him. Chuan's body stiffened, as if struck by lightning. He froze in place. Watching the little one running towards him, Chuan felt his brain explode, similar to a system crash. Little Chi-Chi, can call me daddy now? Chuan felt his scalp tingling, frozen there, somewhat at a loss. He had lived through 2 lifetimes and hadn't had a girlfriend yet, but unexpectedly became a father prematurely. This strange feeling made it difficult for Chuan to describe for a moment. He now understands why many people become dumbfounded the moment they see their child born, as if their brain has forgotten to think. He didn't even think about how little Chi-Chi suddenly opened her mouth to speak without anyone teaching her. Chuan originally thought this was just acting, but it turned out this kind of wonderful feeling really exists. Looking at this incredibly cute little fellow before him, Chuan felt like his heart was about to melt because of her. In this cold, bloody, and ruined apocalyptic world, such a tender voice seemed to dispel all death and darkness. Chuan was not the only one feeling incredibly shocked. Ji Rushue herself was also equally surprised. The moment she spoke, Ji Rushue stood there dumbfounded with surprise filling her eyes. How did I suddenly start speaking? But Ji Rushue didn't mind this too much, as she wasn't exactly a real baby. With the soul of her past life, speaking wasn't really a problem. However, since being reborn into a baby's body, she hadn't gotten familiar with its organs and had not practiced speaking much. Otherwise, she could have spoken long ago. After Ji Rushue opened her eyes, the apocalypse had already erupted in this world. Besides having a zombie father with human consciousness, there was no one else to talk to. So, Ji Rushue simply stayed silent. Clearly, she was too excited and agitated just now, so her thoughts slipped out uncontrollably. Seeing the zombie father who had accompanied her for many days survive and return unharmed, Ji Rushue truly felt excited and happy inside. This feeling of regained loss was the most thrilling. Even for Ji Rushue, who was accustomed to seeing life and death separations, experiencing all this now Her heart was filled with joy and excitement. In Ji Rushua's heart, she had long regarded Lu Chuan as her family, as an irreplaceable presence in her life. Even though the two of them, a human baby and a zombie in the apocalypse, such sentiments were not constrained by racial boundaries. Watching little Chi-Chi in front of him, Lu Chuan found himself so excited that he was gesticulating wildly. He had never been called Dad before, and had not expected that the feeling of becoming a father could be so remarkable. Roar! Roar! Lu Chuan's eyes were filled with delight as he looked at the little one in front of him, with countless words wanting to be expressed. Unfortunately, being a zombie, he had long lost the ability to speak. Whether he could restore this ability in the future was uncertain, but for now, there was no hope. Therefore, Lu Chuan could only let out a couple of low growls to express his inner excitement and delight, just wondering if little Chi-Chi could understand his meaning. Lu Chuan couldn't help but let the corners of his mouth rise. Luckily, with constant evolution, his appearance now looked not much different from humans. Otherwise, making this action would be somewhat creepy. Ha ha! I've become a dad. I never thought in my past life I didn't even have a girlfriend, and in this life, being reborn as a zombie, I end up becoming a father. Little Chi-Chi is awesome. I knew my dear daughter is a genius. Lu Chuan was extremely excited at this moment. As for the matter of the little one speaking, Lu Chuan had already thought about it before. But currently he's really powerless, since speaking relies on mutual communication. If no one teaches her, what if little Chi-Chi becomes a mute in the future? He couldn't keep roaring like himself. That would be too weird. So Lu Chuan mostly avoided making sounds in front of little Chi-Chi, fearing the little one would learn something she shouldn't. But he never expected the little one to stay in the room by herself every day and could learn to speak all on her own. She could stand up and walk upright, and even learn to speak all on her own. If this isn't a genius, what is it? Lu Chuan finally understood what it meant to be born knowing. Little Chi-Chi is exactly this kind of prodigy. No, godly infant. He felt that little Chi-Chi living in the apocalypse was truly a waste of innate talent. If she could live in a stable world, just based on this little one's wisdom and qualifications, she would definitely become a genius prodigy. Daddy, no milk. Seeing the zombie father ready to prepare formula for her, Ji Rushua quickly ran to Lu Chuan's side, tugged at his clothes, babbling. As she spoke, she opened her mouth, revealing her 2 rows of baby teeth. Drinking milk powder every day, Ji Rushua was truly sick of it. She felt like her mouth always tasted like formula. Lu Chuan's actions paused, feeling a bit embarrassed for a moment. He didn't expect the little one to grow this fast, already having baby teeth. He had virtually no experience in raising children, unexpectedly knowing less than little Chi-Chi about these things. Lu Chuan subconsciously scratched his head, feeling somewhat confused in the kitchen around him. He had never raised a child. Apart from making formula, he didn't know where to start for a moment. But quickly Lu Chuan responded by going to the 6th floor, clearing out space in a room there. Then, Lu Chuan had the corpse puppet gather firewood and took out a pot, putting mineral water and some rice together to start cooking. Lu Chuan didn't expect he would actually light a fire indoors so soon. As the apocalypse progressed, there were no longer fresh vegetables, so Lu Chuan could only make some rice porridge for the little one. Then Lu Chuan added some formula, using a spoon to mash the porridge into a sticky paste. Looking at the bowl of thick rice paste in front of him, Lu Chuan nodded in satisfaction. This should be the baby's food in the apocalypse. He then let the rice paste cool down and brought it to the little one. Daddy, let me do it myself. Seeing Lu Chuan clumsily feeding her, Ji Rushua couldn't wait anymore. She simply took the spoon from Lu Chuan's hand and started eating bit by bit on her own. Though Lu Chuan's baby food was simple and rough, Ji Rushua didn't pick on it. Having enough to eat in this apocalyptic world was already pretty good, much better than drinking milk every day. Watching the little one eat heartily, Lu Chuan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Little Chi-Chi is finally grown up. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of something cutting through the air echoed in the living room, sharper than before. Lu Chuan brandished the machete in his hand with a fierce momentum, the silver blade casting a cold gleam throughout the room. As Chuan evolved by consuming crystal cores, his body had improved significantly, no longer the stiff and fragile form it once was. Even though he didn't know any blade techniques and hadn't systematically learned any combat skills. But with his physical strength not fully enhanced, Chuan just randomly waved the machete based on some simple kung fu segments from memory. The sharp, relentless knife light made him seem like a top martial arts master. Why does it feel like Dad has become much stronger than before? Ji Rushua sat on the sofa, watching her zombie father practicing blade techniques not far away, feeling deeply puzzled. Recalling their first encounter, her zombie father seemed no different from other zombies, just with fewer bloodstains and wounds on him. His body was equally thin and frail, full of a rotting aura. But now, her zombie father, swinging the machete, seemed much more robust. Through observing the folds in Chuan's clothes and overall shape, Ji Rushua could tell that her zombie father's body underneath the clothes was undoubtedly muscular. And it seemed even the color of his skin had changed. If not observed closely, one might really think he was a human. What's going on? Could it be that zombies, like humans, can also enhance their physique through training? Why in her previous life did she never encounter such a thing? But after thinking it over, Ji Rushua was relieved. After all, in her previous life, she also never encountered a low-level zombie that could retain human consciousness. Ji Rushua chalked these up as secrets of the zombie race. After all, her past life was mostly spent surviving or fighting, despite being an empress of the human race. In the past life, facing zombies meant either fleeing or killing. She really had never observed closely what zombies were like. Watching her zombie father swinging the machete continuously, Ji Rushua couldn't help but think of some body-refining techniques she knew from her past life. If one could get stronger through training, could these techniques be taught to her father for cultivation? Her father wasn't an evolved zombie, and as the apocalypse developed, he would eventually become the lowest cannon fodder. As long as he could enhance his strength, even a little, it would increase his chances of surviving the apocalypse. Ji Rushua was also curious about what it would look like if a zombie trained in body-refining techniques, and if its combat power could catch up with those evolved zombies. On the balcony, Chuan looked at the sharp machete in his hand, nodding with satisfaction. Since his body had greatly enhanced through crystal core evolution, Chuan clearly felt that the combat skills he practiced had become increasingly proficient. Compared to before, his physique had improved quite a bit. Chuan felt if he had a weapon, he might even hold his own against other evolved zombies in close combat. At that moment, Chuan suddenly felt a change in his mind. New information came from his controlled corpse puppet. With a shift in perspective, Chuan found that his controlled corpse puppet finally spotted an evolved zombie on a street several kilometers away. A giant tank-type zombie, muscularly robust, was crouching on the street gnawing something. Seeing this big fellow, Chuan's eyes lit up. His telekinesis had greatly improved, and Chuan had always wanted to try controlling an evolved zombie. Now, finally had the chance. Without hesitation, Chuan headed out toward the evolved zombie's direction. Chuan didn't act rashly, first surrounding himself with a group of corpse puppets, pretending to be a wandering horde of regular zombies, slowly approaching the tank-type zombie. With several corpse puppets as cover, this small group of zombies swaying on the street didn't seem too conspicuous. The tank-type zombie, focused on gnawing flesh, didn't notice anything unusual, continuing to feed with its head down. For safety reasons, Chuan didn't directly launch mind control too early. Instead, he used these surrounding corpse puppets as cover, gradually getting closer to the target. Chuan had never tried controlling an evolved zombie and didn't know what it would feel like. So to be more prudent, he deliberately slowed the corpse puppet squad's pace to avoid attracting the tank zombie's attention. Finally, without alerting the opponent, Chuan came within less than 100 meters of the tank zombie. At this distance, Chuan could even see the texture of the zombie's skin, and the robust muscles emitted a strong sense of pressure. Chuan immediately began concentrating his telekinesis, weaving it into threads that steadily enveloped the zombie ahead, attempting to control it. Sure enough, when controlling other zombies, Chuan could turn them into puppets in an instant. But when his telekinesis enveloped this zombie, Chuan felt resistance. Roar! The tank zombie let out a few roars, resisting Chuan's psychic power. However, Chuan's evolved telekinesis was incredibly strong, quickly breaking through the tank zombie's defenses. Invisible threads of telekinesis surged rapidly into the tank zombie's body, and Chuan successfully turned this powerful evolved zombie into his corpse puppet. Did it actually work? Successfully controlling an evolved zombie, Chuan was overjoyed, not expecting to actually achieve this. Though controlling this particularly strong, evolved zombie consumed a lot more psychic energy than other ordinary zombies. But for the evolved Chuan, it was just within an acceptable range. Exchanging some telekinesis for a powerful, mighty corpse puppet seemed an incredibly worthwhile trade to Chuan. This giant with a robust physique and thick arms like an intertwining dragon. The zombie could crush cars with its arm swings, a terrifying strength far beyond ordinary zombies. This single, massive, evolved corpse puppet under his control already surpassed the combat effectiveness of a regular corpse puppet squad. Looking at this giant corpse puppet before him, Chuan nodded with satisfaction. With the addition of the evolved zombie, his combat strength was significantly boosted. Looking at the gigantic creature in front of him, standing over 2 meters tall, Chuan grew more and more delighted. As the saying goes, 1,000 troops are easy to come by, but a capable general is difficult to find. This gigantic, evolved zombie before him was undoubtedly a major general among his corpse puppet squad. The muscle, as thick and strong as a knotty dragon, seemed capable of demolishing any obstacle in its way. This big corpse puppet was almost twice the size of ordinary ones, and just its thick arms were as large as 2 legs of a normal corpse puppet. Chuan controlled the corpse puppet to come over to him, and he instinctively reached out to feel its arm. SSS, so hard. This solid arm was simply like forged steel. It possessed immense strength and an incredibly tough defense. Chuan knocked on it a few times with his fist, making a bang, bang, bang sound. It's really something strong, standing in front of me like a giant. Henceforth, you'll be called to Pang. Chuan stood with his hands on his hips, quite satisfied, as Pang stood in front with 10 low-level ordinary corpse puppets behind him. Chuan now felt that his corpse puppet squad finally had the capability to survive in the apocalypse. With his squad, Chuan returned to the Sunshine District, feeling very pleased. Walking down the street with such a big figure by his side, Chuan felt as if his back was straighter than ever. Indeed, might makes right. Having such a powerful warrior on his side, the sense of security was overwhelming. On the way home, Chuan took the opportunity to go to the hardware store with Pang. Skillfully arriving at the back of the hardware store, Chuan pushed away a large pile of equipment and pulled out 2 1-meter-long, 100-pound iron hammers from the tools there. Usually, a hardware store wouldn't have hammers of such weight. These hammers required immense strength to wield, and typically, a large hammer would weigh around 10 pounds. This was 3 times that. Even corpse puppets would find swinging a 100-pound hammer cumbersome. It significantly reduced attack speed, lacking practicality. It was not as useful as a shorter fire axe. Therefore, Chuan had left these iron hammers in the store, never expecting he'd actually find time to use them. He tossed the 2 iron hammers to Pang, who swung them wildly, 1 in each hand. This weighty iron hammer was a bit excessive for other corpse puppets. But for Pang, they were practically custom-made, like divine weapons in his hands. Chuan positioned Pang to guard the entrance of Building 5, with the 2 hammers at his feet, looking much like a gate god. With such a powerhouse blocking the entrance, the safety of Building 5 was beyond question. Having tasted the benefits of evolved zombies, Chuan continued to deploy corpse puppets to track down other zombies in the following days. Currently, for zombies to evolve, they needed to devour crystal cores, so the more of these, the better. Now, with Pang as a high-level combat force, Combined with the cooperation of many corpse puppet squad members, Chuan was confident he could take down any solitary evolved zombie. After all, an armament-equipped corpse puppet squad could barely combat beyond their level. Not to mention he now had an evolved zombie. Although Depang had tough defenses and immense strength, he was slightly lacking when fighting agile zombies. Either he needed to kill them while being wounded, or he might be worn down and killed by exploiting agility. However, the corpse puppets controlled by Chuan perfectly made up for these shortcomings. That was Depang's twin hammers. When swung, any ordinary zombie daring to approach would have bones broken and muscles severed directly. In Chuan's hands, this big, evolved zombie transformed into a powerful presence integrating offense and defense. Meanwhile, upstairs, Rushua was ceaselessly practicing the glazed breathing technique, honing her telekinesis skills. The glazed breathing technique continuously absorbed the energy factor from the air while strengthening her body and enhancing her telekinesis. After constant practice over this period, Rushua's ability to walk upright had become more proficient. No longer did she wobble like before. She could even manage a simple hop. And while Chuan was out, Rushua had found a few iron nails from elsewhere, using this time to hone her telekinesis. Swish, swish, swish. As a series of whizzing sound arose, the nails, controlled by Rushua's telekinesis, flew out rapidly, piercing straight into the dining table. Such terrifying force could completely penetrate a human skull, killing easily. The talent of telekinesis, combined with her other talent ability, time control, endowed Rushua with formidable combat power in this apocalypse, capable of harvesting lives easily. Even an infant could kill without a trace. Imagining such a thing was utterly terrifying. Watching the nails embedded deep in the dining table, Rushua nodded in satisfaction. Her strength might not yet be particularly formidable, but in the early days of the apocalypse, it was enough. As long as she didn't encounter those mysterious creatures with special abilities, at least she should have no trouble protecting herself. Looking out at the desolated world, Rushua's gaze grew more determined. I believe it won't be long before I can protect Zombie Daddy while he goes out to gather supplies. Although I'm still a baby now, the Empress, will not hold us back. Rushua really didn't want to experience the feeling of losing a loved one again. Bang, bang, bang. Sounds of clattering echoed from downstairs again, and Rushua knew it was her zombie father training once more. Rushua sighed helplessly. To her, it seemed her zombie father was indeed putting in a lot of effort. But unfortunately, the harder he tried, the more heartbreaking it became. Ordinary low-tier zombies, no matter how much they trained, could merely make their bodies slightly stronger at most. No matter how hard they tried, they were just ordinary zombies. Without breaking the genetic limits of their body, relying solely on the most basic physical state, it was impossible for them to compete with evolved beings. Poor zombie father. I guess I'll have to help you hunt more evolved zombies in the future. Rushua had already made up her mind. Relying on her zombie father to become stronger on his own seemed hopeless. But luckily, as the unparalleled Empress, perhaps it wouldn't take long for her to fight against evolved zombies. Once she hunted more evolved zombies in the future, even if it meant feeding him these crystal cores, she'd try to help her zombie father gain some strength. Although Rushua wasn't sure what changes would occur after an ordinary zombie devoured an essence core, it should undoubtedly make them a bit stronger than regular zombies. 6th floor living room. Just as Rushua was envisioning a future with Chuan in her mind, Chuan was already on the 6th floor, using his powerful combat prowess to easily defeat the encirclement of 10 corpse puppets. Although these zombies didn't look much different from Chuan in stature, their combat capabilities were utterly incomparable. It was like comparing a 1.5-ton car to a V12 supercar. The body sizes might be similar, but they're entirely different in terms of horsepower. After successfully advancing to the 2nd tier by devouring a zombie crystal core, Chuan's physical attributes had greatly improved. He had made tremendous all-around breakthroughs in strength, speed, reaction, and defense. The most crucial advantage Chuan had over the other zombies was his exceptional intelligence. These ordinary low-tier zombies only attacked instinctively with bites and pounces, but Chuan possessed combat skills he had learned himself, with advantages in skills and strength. Even as a telekinesis evolved zombie, Chuan could effortlessly fend off 10 foes in close combat. Oh! Suddenly, Chuan's mind stirred. His corpse puppet had made a new discovery. A low-tier corpse puppet, while patrolling the district, suddenly spotted a giant mutant dog. This mutant dog was originally on the second floor, but upon noticing the corpse puppet, it broke through the window and leaped down. As this mutant dog charged down, Chuan nearly couldn't associate this creature with a dog if not for its canine head. The mutant dog's body length was nearly 2 meters, and its fur had turned jet black and hard. Its physique was incredibly robust, resembling a wild black boar. This was the first time Chuan had seen other mutated creatures in the post-apocalyptic world. Chuan wanted to test the strength of this mutant creature, quickly controlling a corpse puppet to approach. Yet just as the corpse puppet took a step, the mutant dog pounced. Bang! The low-tier corpse puppet was instantly annihilated. Chuan estimated this mutant dog's strength was likely no weaker than a typical evolved zombie, and it was far more aggressive. Without delay, Chuan brought out his trump card, the evolved zombie Depang. Like a gate god, Depang charged at the mutant dog with 2 large iron hammers. Depang's imposing momentum was utterly terrifying. Any other creature might have already fled in fear. Yet the giant mutant dog was undaunted, moving like a black lightning bolt, wildly darting with its stout body. Although strong in stature, this mutant dog was considerably shorter than Depang. Its sharp claws resembled scimitars, scratching the ground and leaving several marks. If an ordinary evolved zombie faced this mutant dog, it would likely endure a fierce battle. However, the zombie controlled by Chuan seemed like a war god incarnate. With 2 large iron hammers swinging wildly, the mutant dog didn't dare to approach. Boom! Taking advantage of the mutant dog's unpreparedness, Depang smashed its front paw with a hammer, and despite its sturdy build, the mutant dog suffered broken bones and tendons. Bam! Chuan wasted no time, commanding Depang to deliver a finishing blow. A hammer slammed down on the mutant dog's head, causing the massive canine head to shatter like a watermelon. Looking at the strong, mutated dog corpse, Chuan nodded in satisfaction. Indeed, the strength of an evolved zombie is entirely incomparable to a low-level zombie. This mutated dog was incredibly fast, and its physique was very robust. It could be said to possess both tremendous power and a strong body. The most crucial aspect was those claws that looked like scimitars, and this was a mutated creature, not a zombie dog. Therefore, it retained a certain level of intelligence, making it even harder to deal with than an evolved zombie. However, because it wasn't a zombie creature, as long as it experienced severe pain, the mutated creature would be stimulated, affecting its subsequent judgment. This allowed Chuan to easily kill it. Zombies have crystal cores in their brains. Other creatures can mutate, possibly because they received some mysterious power after the blood moon. Thinking of this, Chuan controlled Depang to directly reach into the brain of this mutated giant dog and indeed found a white crystal core. Apparently, this mutated dog had not devoured any of its kind since the apocalypse. Had it evolved a few times, it might not have been so easy to deal with. Looking at the fresh flesh in front of him, Chuan didn't waste it. He directly controlled Depang to lift the corpse of the mutated giant dog and headed back towards the Sunshine District. The zombie crisis has been going on for over a month now, and Chuan hasn't seen fresh meat for a long time. During the early stages of the zombie apocalypse, he had been eating frozen meat. The only fresh meat he had seen was human. The scent of fresh blood soon attracted other zombies. Masses of zombies were lured by the blood to gather in Depang's direction. Roar! Looking at the surrounding zombies, Depang suddenly let out an angry roar. Under his powerful pressure as an evolved zombie, these low-level zombies immediately trembled uncontrollably, frozen in place, too scared to advance. Roar! Roar! However, at that moment, an equally angry roar echoed. A massive creature exuding pressure came charging from a distance. This monster was nearly 2.5 meters tall, its size almost matching Depang. Its physique was also bulky and muscular, filled with terrifying explosive power. Those very prominent stout arms indicated that it was the same type of evolved zombie as Depang. Roar! Filled with brutality in its eyes, this zombie was clearly after the corpse of the mutated dog carried by Depang, as well as the crystal core in Depang's mind. Having looked for so long without finding it, you've delivered yourself. Seeing the large evolved zombie in front of him, Chuan didn't panic. Instead, he became more excited. He urgently needed evolved zombie crystal cores to enhance his strength. This lure of constant evolution was so enticing. Even Chuan could barely resist. But primarily in this apocalypse, only by constantly evolving can one survive. Facing this evolved zombie, Chuan's controlled Depang was equally unyielding. He threw the corpse of the giant mutated dog aside and then began a furious battle. Bang! 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 The two towering behemoths of over 2 meters clashed, their arms swinging and smashing, crumpling all surrounding cars. The surrounding ground was full of ruts. This tank-type zombie battle was like an excavator crazily destroying the surrounding environment. And being zombies, they had no concept of pain. Each strike was with full force. The clash of their swinging arms sounded like stones striking metal, something flesh and blood shouldn't be able to produce. This evolved zombie was similar in size to Depang, and their strength was evenly matched. However, Depang, controlled by Chuan, had even more formidable fighting capabilities. Using his combat skills, Chuan quickly created a situation of crushing the opponent. Meanwhile, other low-level corpse puppets also arrived on the scene, each wielding a fire axe and charging forward. Bang! 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 Unfortunately, low-level zombies were still low-level. Their combat capability was incomparable to these evolved zombies. Even the once invincible fire axe was ineffective this time, merely producing clinks and clanks when hitting the large zombie's arm, causing no substantial harm. Roar! It seemed Chuan's unfair fighting tactic using a numerical advantage angered the tank zombie completely. Breaking free from Depang's control, it viciously swung its arms, crushing the head of a corpse puppet that failed to dodge in time. This level of evolved zombie was immensely powerful, posing a fatal threat to any corpse puppet. After testing, Chuan finally brought out his own pair of hammers. Depang grabbed the dual hammers from behind and crazily swung them at his opponent, instantly boosting his combat power several times over. Crack! Crack! Under the furious swings of the dual hammers, the giant zombie couldn't dodge in time, and several bones in its body were snapped. Chuan's massive hammers targeted the knees of the big guy. Even though the defense of this tank zombie was strong, Chuan controlled Depang, who was equally powerful. Once the giant's legs were smashed by Chuan, its massive body faltered and crashed to the ground. Before it could get back up, Chuan's terrifying dual hammers followed up and crazily struck its back and arms. Seized the moment to take his life, the other corpse puppets rushed forward again. These few corpse puppets wielded fire axes, chopping madly at the evolved zombie, which had already lost most of its mobility, finally killing it successfully. Crack! With powerful swings of the fire axe, a corpse puppet split the big guy's head open and extracted the crystal core. Chuan was delighted. He had been searching for evolved zombies for many days without seeing one. Unexpectedly, today was truly a double blessing. Not only had he encountered and slain a mutated giant dog, but also a similarly powerful evolved zombie. 2 mutated crystal cores in hand, his strength could receive a certain degree of enhancement. Soon, Depang brought back both the crystal core and the corpse of the mutated giant dog to building number 5. Chuan received the crystal core. It was his first time seeing the crystal core of a mutated creature. By sight, It appeared not much different from the crystal core in the back of a zombie's head. The most crucial part was that, even though he hadn't consumed such a crystal core before, Chuan could feel a strong desire for it within his body. This desire was no different from that for zombie crystal cores. Chuan was confident that zombies would surely be able to consume this mutated giant dog's crystal core. After all, he was already a zombie. What would a zombie be picky about eating? He brought both crystal cores before him, and without much thought, devoured them quickly. Instantly, a surge of massive energy began to roam continuously within Chuan's body. This long-lost evolutionary power nourished Chuan's somewhat parched body, making his already mutated form even stronger. Chuan could clearly feel the strength within his body continuously increasing. At the same time, the feeling of enhanced defense and speed flooded back into his mind once again. However, as Chuan was already a second-tier zombie, the two mutated creatures slain today were only first-tier. The mutated tank zombie had a red and white crystal core in its brain, while the mutated giant dog's crystal core was merely white. These two crystal cores, after Chuan consumed them, increased his energy somewhat, but not particularly much. Therefore, although two crystal cores were consumed together this time, the impact was not as strong as before. Chuan nodded inwardly, realizing that as his abilities grew, he would need either to devour more crystal cores or to defeat stronger opponents to achieve further breakthroughs in the future. Although the energy brought by the first-tier crystal core was smaller, fortunately, the count was rather high. He managed to gain 2 today. The power of the crystal core made Chuan's physical strength more condensed than before. Meanwhile, Chuan's telekinesis also began to further increase. Although he wasn't overwhelmed like before, he could feel that his telekinesis had been greatly depleted after he controlled the Pang. Now, with the consumption of these two crystal cores, the previously depleted telekinesis was also replenished. Chuan's eyes lit up with sudden joy. With his telekinesis restored, it meant he could control another evolved zombie, which would further boost his power. After refining both crystal cores, Chuan felt refreshed, and his mind cleared substantially. Seeing the mutated giant dog carried back by the Pang, Chuan nodded in satisfaction. He hadn't tasted such fresh blood food in ages. Today was simply a feast. Then, Chuan lay atop the zombie dog and began to tear into it voraciously. However, unlike before, Chuan wasn't overly delighted. Now as he gnawed on this fresh flesh, he found the sensation of hunger was not as intense as before. Compared to his earlier struggle for a piece of frozen meat, even fighting zombies, this situation was almost too good. After consuming some of the flesh, Chuan left the rest for Pang. Perhaps due to evolution, Chuan felt his hunger was not as strong as before. Moreover, for Chuan now, consuming crystal cores made him feel more comfortable. Pang, however, was indifferent. Faced with fresh blood food, he devoured without hesitation. As the mutated giant dog's flesh was consumed, Pang's injuries began to heal rapidly, visible to the naked eye. Chuan did consider leaving some of the mutant giant dog's meat to make a meat porridge for little Chi-Chi. After all, in this post-apocalyptic world, just drinking milk powder and eating rice cereal would always be lacking in nutrition. But Chuan really didn't dare to take the risk with the flesh of the already mutated giant dog, as humans might not be able to consume it. If the little guy ingests it and gets infected with some virus, that would be terrible. Whether the meat of these mutant creatures can be consumed needs to be determined later, after some verification and consideration. After that blood moon night, humans, zombies, and these surviving creatures must have undergone some kind of mutant evolution. If humans can eat the meat of these mutant creatures, then the little guy's future diet will be much richer than it is now. Chuan still thought it was safer to feed this meat to the zombies, since nobody really knows what might exist within the bodies of mutated creatures. Anyway, he'll still encounter more mutated creatures in the future, and if their meat truly is edible, there will be plenty of chances in the future, so it wouldn't matter to miss this one. Ji Ruxue, in the living room, didn't know that Chuan was out with the corpse team, killing fiercely. She sat cross-legged on the sofa, meditating and cultivating. You could see Ji Rushue's body trembling slightly because her current body was still too weak. With the glazed breathing technique running, a large amount of energy factor in the air rapidly rushed into her body, continuously improving Ji Rushue's physical strength while enhancing her telekinesis. A moment later, the aura emanating from Ji Rushue suddenly surged. Great! After so long of cultivating, I've finally broken through to level 2. Ji Rushue suddenly opened her eyes. Those black and white eyes were completely different from the zombies of the post-apocalypse, appearing very bright in the dim living room. At this moment, Ji Rushue's eyes were full of confidence and excitement, because as a baby, breaking through to level 2 would greatly improve her ability to protect herself. In Ji Rushue's memory, after the initial chaos of the post-apocalypse, everyone began to live a life of mutant evolution. Also, human survivors categorize humans, zombies, and fierce beasts into 9 levels based on their strength. Level 1 being the weakest, and 9 being the strongest, symbolizing the utmost strength. Level 7 was the king, level 8 was the emperor, and level 9 was the most powerful emperor-level existence. In her previous life, Ji Rushue had fought her way through in the post-apocalypse, constantly struggling, eventually breaking through to become an unparalleled empress. After the strange blood moon, those who gained evolutionary abilities through mutations were considered level 1 existences. If zombies and fierce beasts want continuous evolution, they must mutually devour each other's crystal core, converting it into their own energy. Zombies and fierce beasts, we can say, only have one path of relentless killing for evolution. In some ways, humans compared to zombies and fierce beasts have relatively less intense competition. Human survivors, shortly after the arrival of the post-apocalypse, began to develop drugs that could provide evolution. By the mid to late stage of the post-apocalypse, they utilized ancient relics to create cultivation techniques, allowing humans to absorb energy factor from the air, continuously improving their physical condition and advancing their realm. But currently, it is still the initial stage of the post-apocalypse, and cultivation techniques for humans have not yet been researched. So at this time, humans' power is relatively weak compared to zombies and mutated creatures who can quickly evolve by devouring crystal core. However, for Ji Rushue, these limits do not apply to her. As a powerhouse who cultivated up to the Emperor realm, Ji Rushue's glaze technique was top tier even in the later post-apocalypse. Although she is still just a baby, Ji Rushue still managed to step into the second stage of cultivation with a glazed breathing technique. In Ji Rushue's memory, there should be no humans breaking through to level 2 at this stage. Swish, swish. Along with Ji Rushue's thoughts, the 2 nails that were deeply embedded in the table quickly flew back to Ji Rushue's hand. You could see the flight speed of the nails was faster after the breakthrough. Moreover, after continuous practice over this time, Ji Rushue's control over the nails became increasingly skilled. Even recalling it with such a fast speed didn't cause any harm to her tender little hands. Ji Rushue nodded in satisfaction, confident in her dual talents. Now, with her object manipulation ability and time manipulation, she could completely protect herself in this post-apocalypse, even protect her zombie dad. Click! The sound of the door opening emerged, and Ji Rushue hurriedly hid the nails, and with a wave of her small hand, a nearby plush bear flew into Ji Rushue's hand. When Chuan entered, Ji Rushue pretended to be a typical child, playing with toys. In a very good mood, Chuan saw the little one looking lively and cute, and the smile on his face became even brighter. He quickly walked over to Ji Rushue's side, picked up a Barbie doll on the side, and started teasing the little one. Although Chuan's way of teasing children was quite rough, Ji Rushue was sensible, pretending to like it very much, giving Chuan plenty of emotional value. Ji Rushue sighed helplessly in her heart, just wishing she could grow up quickly. Wait! Distractedly playing along with Chuan, Rushua suddenly sensed a faint hint of a bloody smell on her zombie dad. As one who emerged victorious from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, Rushua was exceptionally keen on that scent. Taking advantage of Chuan's inattentiveness, Rushua carefully observed, and indeed found traces of blood on Chuan's body. Though not obvious, it could be confirmed that it was freshly left. Meanwhile, Rushua also found a small tuft of hair. She quietly picked it up, and when Chuan turned and went into the kitchen to cook, Rushua cautiously brought the hair to her eyes for inspection. What kind of hair is this? Completely black and a bit hard, and also long and coarse. This is absolutely impossible for humans or zombies to grow. Could it be a mutated fierce beast? Rushua guessed silently to herself. Besides the mutated fierce beasts, she really couldn't figure out what kind of creature would have such hair. But the problem is, mutated fierce beasts usually have very strong powers. Just with her zombie dad who hasn't evolved, how could he possibly be a match for a mutated fierce beast? Could it be? Zombie dad is not an ordinary zombie. After having doubts in her heart, Rushua's mind became restless. The evolution level of ordinary zombies is limited, and they are likely to be eliminated over time. But evolved zombies are different, as they can gradually grow stronger in this post-apocalyptic era. The thought that her zombie father might become a formidable force in the future made Rushua a bit excited. When Chuan returned to the room, Rushua began to scrutinize him closely. She hadn't paid much attention to him before, but a careful examination today revealed that her zombie father was indeed completely different from those ordinary zombies wandering the streets. Those zombies that didn't evolve after the apocalypse gradually become emaciated over time. After all, zombies are inherently an illogical existence. People who should be dead continue to roam like the living dead. Moreover, as the apocalypse progresses, the fresh flesh zombies can consume become scarcer, making their appearance gradually more gaunt and grim. But just from his physique and appearance, her zombie father was completely different from those zombies outside, and if not examined carefully, he might even be mistaken for a human. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chuan returned home and ran to the balcony to practice his self-created Lu's sword technique. The steel knife was brandished in Chuan's hand with vigorous force, easily executing movements that required high demands on joint and body coordination. This further confirmed Rushua's suspicions. Because those zombies that haven't evolved, though they might receive some enhancement after the blood moon, are far from reaching a human's level of agility. Regardless of joints or muscles, they are relatively more rigid and could never achieve the level of flexibility that Chuan displayed. Through the long time spent together, Rushua completely confirmed that her zombie father's physique had indeed changed significantly from when she first saw him. He appeared evidently stronger, with more muscular build, and his shirt was stretched by his muscles, almost resembling a male model with an outstanding physique. This is very rare among zombies. Even though she knew her zombie father was different from common zombies, Rushua couldn't find anything amiss after looking him over multiple times. Usually, after that round of blood moon, potential zombies would mutate and evolve. And when zombies evolve, they acquire certain extraordinary abilities. However, no matter how she examined, Rushua couldn't identify the unique ability of her zombie father. He was just stronger than ordinary zombies, more agile, and more handsome. Instead of undergoing any significant physical changes, he looked more and more like a human. Zombies and mutated fierce beasts typically show their evolution through their physique, with unique abilities discernible from their appearance. For example, in Rushua's memories from her previous life, some early post-apocalyptic evolved zombies underwent substantial physical changes. Tank-type zombies, for instance, become extremely robust and muscular upon evolving, with remarkably sturdy muscles, especially those thick and solid arms, almost like forged steel. The extraordinary aura could be sensed merely from their appearance. Then there are agile-type zombies. Although their body remains somewhat skinny, their hands become extraordinarily strong. Their originally human palms evolve into something like beastly claws, especially with fingernails as tough as steel blades. These two are the more common types of evolved zombies early in the apocalypse, and are also the types that give many survivors headaches. Even worse, there's the licker, which becomes so grotesque with its skin peeled away, revealing blood-red muscles, that it looks like a scarlet monster. Though many evolved zombies with significant physical changes eventually transform through mutations and evolve into elemental-type zombies over time. In the early apocalypse, most zombie evolutions and mutations are mainly reflected in their limbs or overall physique. Besides these zombies with physical evolutions, there are some zombies that gained very special abilities after the blood moon. For example, some zombies can adjust their body's appearance like a chameleon to achieve invisibility. Others look no different from ordinary zombies, but possess unique talents. In a survival base from her past life, Jirushua once saw a zombie indistinguishable from an ordinary zombie in appearance, yet possessing the Earth escape ability, sneaking into the base, causing it to be overrun. But this type of zombie is absolutely one in a million with remarkable growth talent, and, as long as they don't perish prematurely, could essentially become a corpse king by the late apocalypse. Looking at her zombie father, with an unchanged body yet entirely different from ordinary zombies, Jirushua suddenly had a bold idea. Could it be that her zombie father is not only an evolved zombie, but also one in a million, having successfully awakened an extremely rare talent ability? If that's truly the case, her zombie father is hiding far too deep. Despite living with him day in and day out for such a long time, she still didn't know what his talent ability was. Jirushua decided that she must figure out her father's talent ability. Although her zombie father was hiding deeply, Jirushua felt no dissatisfaction about being kept in the dark. Instead, she was very happy. Zombies themselves are creatures devoid of thought, usually extremely bloodthirsty, with only a portion of them evolving wisdom in later stages. Zombies that possess human consciousness early on are very rare. If not for an evolved talent, it wouldn't be worth mentioning, but coupled with a continuously evolving talent, it's a winning start. At least, even as Empress in her previous life, Jirushua hadn't come across such a zombie until now. And talents that are less noticeable are often the ones with great potential and value. Thinking that her zombie father wasn't a mediocre individual, even having the potential to become a corpse king, Jirushua couldn't help but smile. "Little Chi-Chi, why are you grinning at me foolishly?" Chuan came up beside Jirushua and saw her looking at him with a curious smile, which put him in an especially cheerful mood. Seeing Jirushua's clothes had dust on them, Chuan quickly ran downstairs. After all, an infant's body is very fragile and might get sick with no place for treatment. Among the large heap of baby clothes he'd collected, Chuan found a light pink princess dress. After helping little Chi-Chi freshen up, he dressed her in the new outfit, nodding in satisfaction. Little Chi-Chi in a pink princess dress looked extremely adorable, her skin fair and tender, and her jet-black lustrous hair, unaffected by the apocalypse, remained incredibly smooth. Especially those big, moist eyes, which made Chuan feel as if his spirit was being cleansed. "Don't worry, little Chi-Chi. Daddy will keep getting stronger, and even in the apocalypse, I'll let you live like a princess." In a flash, a week has passed. You could say these past few days have been both peaceful and comfortable for Chuan. The bloody liquor in the district that resembled a zombie killer has been put down, so there's basically no need to live in daily fear. And with the continuous improvement in strength, various matters are handled by corpse puppets, while the Pang, like a gate god, guards the entrance as an evolved zombie. Chuan currently doesn't have to worry about danger arriving unexpectedly. Dad's dad is called Grandpa. Dad's mom is called Grandma. A series of childish voices echoed from the living room. Those unaware might think it was the entrance to a shop. In the living room, Jirushua was holding a blue and white learning machine, and the rhymes were emanating from it. In the past few days, Chuan had specifically arranged for corpse puppets to help the little one acquire this item. The little one is growing too fast, almost like a child prodigy. In such a short period, she has learned to speak without any guidance, catching Chuan off guard. It's said parents are a child's first teacher, but having turned into a zombie, he is incapable of teaching. Thinking about the little one's future, Chuan specifically had corpse puppet search for such learning machines with built-in batteries, which didn't require power. This learning machine could emit sounds and interact with people, effectively compensating for his inability to speak. At least the little one wouldn't turn into a mute later, only able to babble or roar. Moreover, this learning machine is very advanced and can effectively guide a child's learning. Chuan had seen many learning machine ads before his journey, but he always deemed them useless at that time. Lo and behold, after crossing into this apocalypse, learning machines turn out to be genuinely useful. Mom no longer has to worry about my studies. It turns out this ad slogan wasn't just talk, it's really effective. Watching little Chi-Chi hold the learning machine and working hard, Chuan nodded in satisfaction. The little one's enthusiasm for learning is quite strong. At least with this learning machine around, she won't become illiterate. If she can master normal human communication by just following the learning machine, all the better. But little does Chuan know, Ji doesn't need such infant enlightenment learning. Before rebirth and before the zombie apocalypse erupted, Ji had already enrolled as a graduate student at a prestigious university. During this time, Ji has adapted to this infantile body and can speak normally, but she dares not reveal herself. After all, her current identity is merely that of an infant who hasn't been born long. Speaking too fluently would be absurd. Even as a prodigy, mastering a language system without hearing typical human dialogues is very unreliable. Although Chuan has become a zombie, Ji does not believe her zombie dad is naive enough to perceive nothing. Thus, while holding a learning machine, Ji attitude is serious, earnestly learning every word and every sentence. It's all in hopes of eventually communicating normally, more relaxed, without being exposed. Otherwise, pretending to talk like a child is really unpleasant. Dad, Mom, Grandpa, Grandma. Though with her experience from 2 lifetimes, uttering such simple terms is awkward, Ji still tries hard to mimic the sounds of a child learning to speak. Glancing at her zombie dad standing excitedly to the side, Ji sighed helplessly. My zombie dad, I'm relearning this enlightenment knowledge for your sake. Thanks to you for finding a learning machine. Why don't you just get me a rocking car? Ji didn't expect that after arduously graduating from graduate school, surviving the apocalypse, and becoming a female empress through countless hardships, now she starts over completely, even beginning to learn infantile education. Unaware of this next to her, Chuan observed little Chi-Chi's enthusiasm and efficiency in self-learning, which made him very pleased. Seems his dear daughter truly has an uncommon talent, a prodigy. Seeing the little one learning to recognize words and speaking just through the learning machine, with her pace continuously quickening, Chuan was thoroughly satisfied. Ever since hearing little Chi-Chi speak, Chuan has been collecting various infant enlightenment books, educational toys, and literacy cards. Nothing should be too hard for the child. Nothing should stunt their education. This is Chuan's most genuine thought as a parent. During this period, although Chuan didn't encounter evolved zombies, he did come across some human survivors. But seeing those survivors frantically fleeing, Chuan had no intention of intervening. Even hearing their heart-wrenching cries and pleas couldn't stir Chuan's gaze. Not everyone is little Chi-Chi. In the apocalypse, life and death are destined, and with the outbreak of this crisis, human nature's dark side would gradually reveal itself. Chuan couldn't guarantee what this group of survivors would do after surviving. Betraying companions in the apocalypse is almost too common. Chuan wouldn't be led by some sort of Mary Sue syndrome to assist people who are complete strangers. Even companions can betray, not to mention him, who isn't even human. Chuan even suspects that if he were exposed, he could likely be sliced up by human survivors. During this week, Lu Chuan mapped out a radius of 8 kilometers using corpse puppets. Within an 8-kilometer radius of Sunshine District, there are 2 relatively large survivor teams. One of which is the team led by the strong Evolver encountered last time in the shop. The group consists of about 20 people, hiding in the northwest corner of Sunshine District, occupying a 3-story building in a small park. This group has set many simple traps inside and outside the park, and even locked the entrance with barbed wire. The other survivor team is the nearest police station to Sunshine District. Lu Chuan sent several corpse puppet waves to explore, finding many sandbags placed in front of the police station, a makeshift stronghold. The surroundings were fortified with barbed wire. There were many zombies slain outside, shell casings on the ground, and bullet holes on the walls. Although the police station near Sunshine District is small, it does have gun reserves. The remaining police officers, along with rescued survivors, total about 30 people, making it one of the stronger survivor teams sheltered inside the station. Looking at the current situation, the strength of these 2 survivor teams is quite remarkable. One has an evolved new human, and the other has stronger firepower reserves. Having such strength in the early stages of the apocalypse is already quite uncommon. Even though Lu Chuan's corpse puppet team has improved significantly compared to before, he also doesn't want to be enemies with these 2 factions. We each mind our own business. I hope you won't disturb me. Lu Chuan himself is human, and he has little interest in human flesh. From the apocalypse until now, Lu Chuan has been gnawing on frozen meat from the fridge, with the only fresh meat being the mutated fierce beast. Moreover, after experiencing the Blood Moon mutation, Lu Chuan discovered that the crystal core in the mutated zombie's brain is more tempting to him than fresh meat. After evolving, Lu Chuan has rarely consumed flesh. Of course, Lu Chuan has no intention of contacting these humans, as he is no longer human, not only a zombie, but an evolving one. Lu Chuan has no doubt that if he appeared in front of these 2 teams, they would solve him first without saying a word. After thinking carefully, the only companion Lu Chuan can get along with now is little Chi-Chi. Being a zombie, Lu Chuan is unwilling to associate with those bloodthirsty monsters, especially since zombies lack consciousness and only act on instinct to create carnage. Even evolved zombies, when meeting, would only think about devouring each other's crystal core. And having human consciousness, Lu Chuan is even less likely to return to the human camp. The principle that if they're not of our kind, their hearts must be different is understood by these survivors too. Due to zombies, countless humans have fallen since the apocalypse began, and they harbor a deep hatred that prevents them from accepting a zombie into their camp. Even if humans really accepted him, Lu Chuan would sleep with one eye open at night. As long as these humans don't bother him, Lu Chuan has no interest in dealing with them. Although he still has human consciousness, Lu Chuan does not think he should live like these human survivors. Surviving in the apocalypse is fundamental, and Lu Chuan won't spare someone just because they're human. In fact, for Lu Chuan, humans are more troublesome than zombies. Zombies act only on instinct, opposing him directly. But human thoughts are far more complex, making it hard for Lu Chuan to guarantee he won't fall into a trap. For Lu Chuan, living without disturbing each other is the best way. However, if these humans were to disturb him and disrupt his rare, peaceful life with little Chi-Chi, Lu Chuan wouldn't mind showing his bloodthirsty side. Thrown into this world inexplicably and infected by zombies, Lu Chuan harbors a stomach full of anger. Now that he finally has a peaceful and good life, if anyone dares to break this, Lu Chuan will make them pay. Next to him, Jirushua raised her head in confusion. Just now, she had felt the surrounding temperature drop sharply. She unexpectedly felt a strong, killing intent from her zombie father, who always cared for her. Could something have made Zombie Dad angry? Recalling the mutated fierce beast fur and some fresh blood she found on Zombie Dad earlier, Jirushua is even more certain that her Zombie Dad is definitely an evolved zombie, and is probably not easy to provoke either. Lu Chuan felt something, turned his head, and saw little Chi-Chi cutely looking at him. Lu Chuan quickly restrained his murderous aura, revealing a gentle smile. Just then, Chuan suddenly felt a movement. His corpse puppet had some new activity. Sharing perspective with the corpse puppet, Chuan pushed open the room door and went downstairs under Ji Rushue's puzzled gaze. Inside a small shop near the police station, Zhao Lin and several police officer colleagues are collecting supplies. Although there are some reserve resources inside the police station, the quantity is limited. As time in the apocalypse progresses, food is already noticeably insufficient, mainly because the police station initially overestimated their own strength and underestimated the horror of this apocalypse, leading the police station to consume a large amount of supplies and manpower early on, hoping to quickly receive support from above, but now more than a month has passed without any sign. This made the survivors inside the police station realize that this time they probably have to rely on self-help. The small shop has long been scoured by humans, but there are still some supplies left. The police officers, carrying their police backpacks, were cautious in gathering items. The shop only had the heavy breathing of everyone and the sound of gathering supplies. Clip-clop. Suddenly, everyone heard a slight noise, causing everyone's hands to pause, immediately vigilant and scanning their surroundings. What was that sound just now? Did you hear it? A police officer frowned and asked softly. The others remained silent. Zhao Lin glanced around and whispered, "It might be a zombie passing by outside. Don't waste time. Quickly gather supplies and return to the police station. Don't get blocked by zombies." However, it seems this team's luck is not too good. As Zhao Lin's words fell, a somewhat skinny zombie appeared at the shop's entrance. Though this zombie looks no different from ordinary zombies, those enormous sharp claws revealed its identity as an evolved zombie. Quick run. Retreat to the police station. This is a mutated zombie. Zhao Lin's face turned pale, quickly urging everyone to withdraw. The police officers moved swiftly, turning and running with their backpacks. But although they are well-trained officers, clearly against this evolved agile zombie, they stood no chance. Bang, bang, bang. This agile zombie moved extremely fast, closing several meters of distance almost instantly with everyone. Bang, bang, bang. The officers immediately opened fire, but they were not special forces personnel. Their marksmanship was relatively weak. Adding to it, the quickness of the evolved zombie kept dodging between the shells, and no shot hit. Seeing the mutated zombie and her teammates, a trace of sadness flashed in Zhao Lin's eyes. Bang, bang, bang. Zhao Lin fired 3 shots at the mutated zombie, loudly shouting to attract its attention. "You all go. Quickly take the supplies back to the police station. The survivors there need you more." While saying, Zhao Lin even threw the supplies she collected to her teammates. "As police officers, we must protect everyone's safety. You must bring these supplies back." The other officers didn't expect that at such a time, Zhao Lin still thought of those survivors. "I'll distract the zombie. You all take the chance to escape from here." With Zhao Lin continuously firing and shouting, the evolved zombie indeed charged straight at her. Zhao Lin desperately dodged, but her speed couldn't compare to the evolved zombie. The shelves that blocked the path were slashed open by the zombie's terrifying claws, and when the last bullet missed, Zhao Lin ran into a corner. Seeing the chasing zombie, Zhao Lin's heart sank. But just as she thought she was doomed, the pursuing evolved zombie suddenly stood still. This bloodthirsty zombie seemed to have empty eyes at that moment. Zhao Lin opened her eyes in disbelief, seeing the evolved zombie in front of her standing still, unmoving, which puzzled her. However, in such a life-and-death situation, Zhao Lin didn't have the mind to ponder what had actually happened and quickly bypassed the zombie, running towards the police station. Escaping from the clutches of a zombie is extremely difficult, let alone when the opponent is an evolved zombie. Currently, Zhao Lin's face was filled with panic, rendering her incapable of thinking. Just after she left, the evolved zombie resumed moving. The formerly fierce zombie suddenly seemed to be controlled by some force, dumbly walking to the side of a shop. The next moment, a figure slowly emerged from the corner. It was Chuan who had rushed here swiftly. The reason the evolved zombie didn't continue to chase Zhao Lin was because Chuan, at the last moment, successfully controlled it using his own abilities. Who would have thought? Even after all this time during the zombie crisis, there are still people with such a saintly heart. Chuan had observed the situation inside the shop just moments ago. One must understand, in this apocalyptic world, self-preservation is the rule of survival. During this time, he had seen too many cases of humans killing one another, working together one moment only to betray the next, pushing companions into the clutches of zombies. This was the first time he had seen someone willing to sacrifice themselves for their companion, choosing to stay behind voluntarily. Even as she was about to die, she was still concerned about the survivors at the police station whom she didn't know at all. In fact, Chuan admired this kind of person, but he didn't agree with their actions. After all, in such a selfish and sinister world, to preserve such purity and humanity is the mark of a very noble and good person. Yet, the problem is that kindness and justice are the most useless things in the apocalypse. Only survival is fundamental. This selfless act is very rare in the post-apocalyptic world. It's just a pity that such good people typically do not end well in the apocalypse, because human nature is the most unreadable thing. However, Chuan didn't mind. This time rescuing Zhao Lin was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. And today also allowed Chuan to witness firsthand that evolved zombies do indeed exhibit considerable combat power over ordinary humans. Even armed police officers were unable to kill such an evolved zombie. Chuan looked at the evolved zombie before him. Its torso was a bit thin, but its hands had turned into sharp claws, nodding with satisfaction. Though both were evolved zombies, this one was completely different from the Depang he subdued earlier. Depang was evidently on the route of large build combined with attack and defense. While this agile-type zombie moved extremely fast, even these trained officers couldn't score a hit. Chuan stepped forward to examine the claws of this evolved zombie. They were indeed extremely sharp. From now on, you'll be called Lightning. When Chuan arrived at the scene earlier, he happened to see this zombie continuously dodging bullets, and its rapid speed made Lightning a fitting description. Then Chuan took his acquisition back to the Sunshine District. Seeing the two figures, one large and one small, guarding the entrance, Chuan nodded with satisfaction. With Depang and Lightning, these two powerful evolved zombies, Chuan felt a great sense of security. During this period of evolution and stockpiling, Chuan had amassed over 20 ordinary low-level zombie corpse puppets, as well as these two different types of evolved zombie corpse puppets. Depang and Lightning are two distinct types of evolved zombies, with Depang having a massive build with immense strength and defense maxed out. Whereas Lightning focuses on speed and attack, one handles offense, and the other defense, effectively covering any weaknesses. Even just one mindless agile-type evolved zombie is enough to drive a team of armed officers to a dead end. Now, wielding over 20 low-level zombies, plus 2 evolved zombies, Chuan felt as though he could walk sideways in this apocalypse. Unless encountering human militaries with heavy firepower, Chuan didn't believe he would face much threat. After all, even his most defensively capable subordinate, Depang, couldn't withstand human thermal weaponry. As for whether it would eventually evolve to withstand human thermal weaponry in the future, Chuan wasn't sure. But right now, with the world already collapsed and the apocalypse having started over a month ago, Chuan had yet to see any military enter the city for rescue. Only small-scale police forces within the city organized relief efforts, which eventually fell apart due to the overwhelming number of zombies and lack of manpower. This sudden zombie outbreak caused the entire world to fall. Chuan guessed the situation in the military was probably not good either. After all, it's illogical that only city residents were infected, leaving the military unaffected. While Chuan was inspecting his corpse puppet army, he was unaware that Jiru Xue was no longer in the bedroom. Earlier, as soon as Chuan sensed the evolved zombie, he quickly left, and Jiru Xue, seeing him leave, secretly used telekinesis to open the door. Now that Jiru Xue had broken through to the second tier, she regained quite a bit of confidence. Possessing two powerful abilities and breaking through to the second tier, Jirushue felt she wasn't in much danger as long as she didn't encounter a particularly strong, evolved zombie. Since her rebirth, Jirushue had always stayed indoors. She hadn't felt a sense of freedom in a long time, and her small body greatly restricted her movements. After continuous cultivation and the support of telekinesis, Jirushue's body was now able to move normally. So Jirushue started to try and see what life was like outside. After all, staying indoors all the time would drive anyone insane, especially someone like Jirushue, who was once an unparalleled empress standing at the pinnacle of the pyramid. Staying indoors all day was unbearably uncomfortable for her. Previously, she tolerated her weakness, but now that she had the power to defend herself, Jirushue didn't want to stay cooped up in a room any longer. At the very least, she needed to figure out where she was and which area she was in. She descended to the 6th floor and entered through an open door, only to be amazed by the scene before her. The 6th floor room was packed with all sorts of supplies. These various supplies filled the storage spaces initially prepared in the room without leaving any wasted space. Looking at the rooms packed full of supplies, Jirushue was momentarily left in awe. Her zombie dad in this apocalypse had hoarded so many supplies, it was enough to open a store. Although Sunshine District, where Chuan lives, is an old community, it also has 2 households per floor. The doors of the 2 rooms on the 6th floor are still open, and after checking, Jirushue found that they were filled with all kinds of supplies. Upon entering the room, several bags of rice piled up in the kitchen can be seen. Jirushue looked around and found nearly 10 bags of rice, each weighing 50 pounds. And there's a huge pile of milk powder needed for her, with several famous brands available. Canned milk powder filled the cabinets, and outside a large pile was stacked like a hill, with even bagged milk powder on top. Looking at the mountain of milk powder piled up in front of her, Jirushue couldn't help but widen her eyes, unable to imagine how long it would take her to consume so much milk powder. She's afraid that by the time all the milk powder is consumed, she would have been saturated with the taste. There is also a large amount of bottled water piled up in the house, reaching 3 meters high, meeting the ceiling. Similarly stacked like a small hill, Jirushue's young body couldn't even climb up. Besides this, there were many daily necessities, mostly for infants and toddlers, such as various types of diapers, baby bottles, and bibs, etc. Various infant toys, literacy cards, and fairy tale books were also brought back by Chuan. After all, Chuan has never taken care of a child and doesn't know what exactly to gather for an infant during growth. Thus, whenever he saw baby products during his scavenges, Chuan had the zombies bring all of them back. Anyway, it's the end of the world now, and these things are free. Moreover, Chuan knew that the world had become so cruel that it would not always be smooth sailing. So bringing supplies home early is more reassuring. And he kept moving until all kinds of supplies filled the place. Only the living room was left with space, which Chuan used to practice his combat skills. Looking at the array of items in the room, Jirushue was shocked while feeling a warmth at heart. The zombie dad collected so many supplies undoubtedly for her sake. After all, as a zombie, he didn't need these baby items. Jirushue's small hand gently caressed these supplies. Her black and white eyes were filled with emotion. In such a chaotic world, collecting this many supplies and bringing them home must have taken great effort by Zombie Dad. Even she felt shocked just by looking at so many supplies. How did Zombie Dad manage it? It must not be easy to bring so many supplies back, right? Looking at her room full of supplies, Jirushue couldn't help but fall into contemplation. Those zombies don't get overly tired like humans do. Having only 2 hands still limits their capabilities. Bringing back all this rice must not have been easy. Usually, Dad is either caring for her or practicing combat skills, rarely going out. To move so many supplies as a zombie would surely take a lot of time. Yet she hasn't seen her zombie dad spending so much time collecting supplies. Thinking about this, Jirushue couldn't help but fall into contemplation, but soon her eyes lit up sharply. Right, Zombie Dad might not be just an ordinary low-level zombie. If he were an evolved zombie, then it could be explained. It is very likely that the ability to transport so many supplies has something to do with Zombie Dad's evolutionary ability. The more Rushua thought about it, the more she believed it could be possible. After all, if he were just an ordinary zombie, how could he move so many supplies? But what exactly is Dad's evolutionary ability? For so long, I haven't seen any sign of it. Usually, after zombies evolve, it is somewhat reflected in one aspect or another. But so far, Rushua hasn't found any clues, only feeling her zombie dad is stronger and more agile than ordinary zombies. Aside from this, there doesn't seem to be anything special. Rushua sat on the sofa, starting to search through her memories of rare, evolved zombies and their unique abilities she encountered in her past life. Actually, there are indeed quite a few zombies with unique abilities, but Rushua thought for a long time without knowing how her zombie dad could match any of them. Moreover, it's only the early apocalypse now. Most zombies with unique abilities appear gradually in the mid to late stages. Zombies that awaken special abilities early on are like martial art prodigies among human sex, definitely 1 in 10,000. Looking at a room full of supplies, Rushua frowned. Could it be Earth escapability? Earth element zombies who awaken Earth escapability can freely travel underground, greatly reducing travel time. If one wanted to quickly move so many supplies into the house, Rushua thought it might only be possible for Earth escape zombies to achieve. Apart from this, it might be possible for zombies with spatial ability, like using the power of space to directly transfer various supplies into the room. But this possibility Rushua dismissed after thinking about it, because power of space is an exceedingly rare talent. Space and time are always the two strongest existences. When time doesn't emerge, space reigns supreme. Entities with spatial talent have the potential to become top-tier powerhouses in the future. In her previous life, Rushua had heard of only one such zombie with spatial talent. This talent is too rare. Moreover, despite its immense potential and powerful capabilities, spatial ability, like her time control, requires massive energy to utilize in its early stages. Even now, having broken through to the second tier, Rushua mostly uses object manipulation ability in battles. In the early stages before strength is established, such high-level talents are impossible to use frequently. Applying spatial ability to transport supplies would be somewhat wasteful. Rushua thought about it and decided to temporarily assess Zombie Dad's ability as Earth Escape. Compared to spatial talent, Earth Escape has a greater possibility and meets the needs for stockpiling supplies. Rushua wanted to continue downstairs, but just then she heard movement from the unit door. No surprise, it's Dad returning from outside. To not reveal her current abilities, Rushua hurried back to the bedroom on the 7th floor, pretending to be nonchalant. Though inside, she felt a bit excited. Unexpectedly, Dad, you truly surprised me. Chuan was in high spirits after gaining a great asset. He could already imagine that in the near future, with a powerful group of zombies behind him, he could thrive in this apocalyptic world. The two evolved zombies were left to guard on the 1st floor, while Chuan returned to the 7th floor. Just as he pushed open the door and entered the room, Chuan discovered a shocking scene. Little Chi-Chi was using the copybook he had bought, lying on the floor, practicing writing. Although the characters Little Chi-Chi wrote were crooked and looked quite ugly, one could vaguely recognize what characters they were. Of course, the reason they were so crooked was because Rushua did it on purpose. She didn't want to expose her identity as a reborn person too early. Being able to read and write at this young age would be too extraordinary. Therefore, she deliberately wrote the characters crookedly, barely pretending that she was in the process of learning. If she had written neatly from the start, even a fool would have noticed something was off. Yet, even though the writing was very ugly, Chuan was still both shocked and delighted. Although Chuan had been single for many years and had neither dated nor had children, he knew that at little Chi-Chi's age, most infants were still crawling on the ground. When he first met little Chi-Chi, the little one could only lie in the crib, not even having the energy to cry. In such a short period, not only did the little one learn to stand and walk and talk, now she was even self-learning to write. Chuan increasingly felt that his precious daughter was a prodigious genius, beyond what words like prodigy could describe. After all, in Chuan's previous life, he never heard of any child at little Chi-Chi's age being so exceptional. Moreover, this was achieved without him providing any guidance, solely through little Chi-Chi's self-learning. However, Chuan didn't think much of it, attributing the achievements to little Chi-Chi's intelligence and the learning machine. As expected of the genius learning machine, truly a worry-free tool for parents. Watching the little one practicing writing stroke by stroke, despite the careless handwriting now, it was already groundbreaking. Chuan's heart filled with pride and satisfaction. Perhaps this is the inner sense of accomplishment a parent feels hoping for their child to succeed. My daughter, Chuan's daughter, is truly extraordinary. Then Chuan gently squatted down and carefully pinched Rushua's cheek. The little one's skin was very smooth. Even in the apocalypse, it was kept clean by Chuan, very fair like a porcelain doll and adorable. Daddy seems really happy today. Apparently, he has had a good haul on this outing. Rushua secretly speculated in her heart. During their time together, Zombie Dad would pinch her cheek whenever he was free. Rushua might not understand what Zombie Dad wanted to say, but she could sense it was an expression of his happiness. The police station. After escaping the evolved zombies, Zhao Lin returned to the police station alive, only to find an intense argument occurring inside. One side was her colleagues, the officers within the police station. The other side was the survivors their station had rescued and sheltered. At this moment, the survivors were highly emotional, pointing at the officers and scolding them harshly. What are you guys doing? Why are you sending us ordinary people out to search for supplies? You're wearing uniforms. As police, you should be protecting us. That's your duty. We are taxpayers, paying you guys so much to feed you, and you expect us to risk our lives outside? Huh, don't even think about it. Being scolded by the survivors, the officers' faces turned extremely pale, their expressions filled with gloom. All right, what happened here? Why is everyone suddenly arguing? Zhao Lin quickly stepped in to separate the two sides. Seeing Zhao Lin had actually returned alive, her colleagues were filled with surprise. When they left, they saw Zhao Lin had been cornered by the evolved zombie. But unexpectedly, she was able to return from such a situation. The survivors who were originally scolding harshly changed their expressions upon seeing Zhao Lin, showing excitement. Wonderful Officer Zhao, we didn't expect you to still be alive. Officer Zhao, quickly come judge this. Officer Li and Officer Wang are actually sending us out to search for supplies. This is no joke. We are just ordinary people. The outside is so dangerous. What if we encounter a zombie? The outside is so dangerous. Sending us out to search for supplies is truly too much. Listening to their grievances, the officers inside increasingly found it difficult to accept. They never expected that risk their lives to gather resources would not receive praise, but be met with intensified criticism. Officer Li and Officer Wang, thinking about today's situation in the shop, felt a surge of nameless anger. Enough! Is your life precious, and ours should be thrown away? Why should it always be us risking our lives to gather resources, while you just sit inside waiting for distribution without needing to exert any effort? Hearing their colleagues' complaints, Zhao Lin frowned. All right, let's stop arguing. Let the task of gathering supplies be handled by us. We're police after all. It's our duty to protect the people. Facing danger is our responsibility. Hearing Zhao Lin's words, the survivors inside applauded joyously. Officer Zhao is indeed just and righteous, not like some people who are selfish. Yes, Officer Zhao is a real good cop. Thank you, Officer Zhao. The survivors knew how dangerous the outside world was. Once they went out, there was a chance they wouldn't come back. They didn't want to take that risk. Officer Li and Officer Wang's faces turned extremely gloomy. But thinking of how today Zhao Lin drew the zombies away, They just exchanged a glance, snorted coldly, and said nothing further. Then the officers began distributing the resources. Seeing the decreasing amounts of supplies in their hands, the survivors couldn't help but complain. "Officer Zhao, can't you gather more food next time? This isn't enough to eat." Yes, every night I'm hungry. The food you bring back isn't enough." Hearing their complaints, Zhao Lin couldn't help but frown. Nonetheless, witnessing everyone's plight in the apocalypse, Zhao Lin felt a duty to care for them, so she always allocated herself the least supplies. Others could still have 2 meals a day, while Zhao Lin would only eat a small packet of biscuits a day. The prolonged malnutrition often made her feel dizzy. Sunshine District. The originally peaceful garden path was now filled with the sounds of something slicing through the air and the clash of metal. 2 figures moved with incredible speed, like martial arts masters from a kung fu movie. In an instant, blades flashed continuously in the area, the sound of a knife slicing through the air, sending shivers down one's spine. The 2 figures engaged in combat were Lu Chuan and his latest evolved corpse puppet, Lightning. As Lu Chuan kept consuming crystal cores and evolving, his physical fitness had significantly improved compared to before. Along with continuous combat training, ordinary low-level corpse puppets were no longer sufficient to meet Lu Chuan's combat demands. Even if these corpse puppets attacked together, Lu Chuan felt no significant threat from them. The previously controlled Depang was really unsuitable as a sparring partner. Depang's physique was very robust and incredibly strong, wielding its hammer like it was sweeping across an army. Standing before Depang, Lu Chuan felt like an infantryman trying to confront a tank. So he wasn't foolish enough to engage Depang. Lightning was undoubtedly his best sparring partner at present. Lightning didn't have Depang's exaggerated physique and strength, but as an evolved zombie, its force wasn't lacking either. In fact, because Lightning was an agile type, its force was even stronger than the Lu Chuan's, who had consumed several crystal cores. Recently, Lu Chuan's corpse puppet had frequently searched for resources in the area and found 2 machetes in a hardware store. After giving the 2 steel knives to Lightning, Lu Chuan issued an order to attack him. This led to the sight of 2 figures clashing like martial arts masters on the garden path. The steel knives were constantly slicing through the air, even bursting into sparks. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As an agile type evolved zombie, Lightning had an extremely fast burst of speed, moving much quicker than Lu Chuan. Even though Lu Chuan had undergone long periods of combat technique training, he could now only defend himself when facing the dual-wielding Lightning. Even the slightest mistake could result in injury. However, Lu Chuan's body coordination and combat awareness also continued to grow with constant honing. With each clash of blades, Lu Chuan felt like his arms were being heavily repelled. In their exchanges, Lu Chuan unleashed all the memory of movements from his past life and the combat skills he'd learned recently. Now, Lu Chuan realized just how important it was to have a strong and suitable sparring partner. After fighting for a long time, Lu Chuan called off the order. Looking at Lightning, who held the dual blades, Lu Chuan nodded silently to himself. Although Lightning was only at the 1st tier, it was indeed a physique-advanced zombie. In close-quarters combat, Lu Chuan's current strength was still slightly inferior to Lightning. Though the battles were more dangerous compared to low-level zombies, Lu Chuan was very exhilarated. Even though he was always on the defensive, Lu Chuan experienced a sense of exhilaration. His combat skills improved rapidly during this combat process, far more so than when honing them with low-level zombies. Lu Chuan never stopped preparing to refine his strength. Although his evolved ability was controlling zombies through telekinesis control. However, Lu Chuan felt he couldn't rely too heavily on this ability, since if one day he had no corpse puppets around him and couldn't control his opponent, he must rely on his own capabilities. Only possessing enough personal strength is the key to surviving in the apocalypse. Looking at the evolved zombie in front of him, Lu Chuan thought for a moment and then issued another command, leading to another flurry of flashing blades in the area. After all, Zombies didn't need to consume a lot of time resting or eating various foods to replenish their energy like humans. After briefly summarizing his battle experiences, Chuan began his training again. Inside the room, after Chuan left, Rushue started wandering again. Rushue continued to search through various odds and ends in the room, hoping to find some useful information. Since her rebirth, Rushue had always lived in the bedroom, still unsure of where exactly she was. She pulled out a pile of documents and quickly began checking them one by one. So this is Jianghai City. Among the scattered documents, Rushue found a contract that recorded the property's information here. Finally understanding her current location, Rushue secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After all, with memories from her previous life, she could still make use of them after rebirth. Unfortunately, Rushue felt a little regretful that she wasn't very familiar with the situation in Jianghai City. In Rushue's memory, there were two very famous strong individuals in Jianghai City. These two strong individuals were one human and one mutated fierce beast, neither of which were evolved zombie types. The human was a powerful individual who had reached the Emperor realm, known as the Nine Deaths Demon Police. The name sounded very strange, but Rushue heard that the Nine Deaths Demon Police was in the police force before the apocalypse, and was even a policewoman. Most importantly, this woman had very peculiar abilities, possessing an eerie resurrection technique. In the apocalypse, the ability to resurrect was like a cheat, and crucially, the Nine Deaths Demon Police could perform it 9 times in a row. She had 9 chances to resurrect. Moreover, with each death, her power would surge several times upon resurrection. It was indeed a very formidable existence, and this cheat-like talent ability could almost render one invincible. This policewoman relied on such incredible abilities, enduring betrayals and deaths in the early period of the zombie apocalypse. Her initial patriotic fervor was gradually frozen by the detestable nature of humanity in the apocalypse, transforming into a cold-blooded killing machine. Ultimately, she grew to become one of the top-tier strong individuals. Meanwhile, the other evolved fierce beast was a giant white bear from a zoo. After the zombie crisis broke out, the zoo was left unmanaged, with these fierce beasts either being devoured or mutating to become incredibly powerful. This originally massive white bear boasted explosive combat power. This beastly king was called Thunderous Roar, a mutated giant bear that wielded the power of thunder. Regarding the white bear called Thunderous Roar, which possesses the power of thunder, Rushue actually doesn't know much. After all, she is the Empress of the human race, and even if she meets fierce beasts, most of the time it's just a fight. However, this human race powerhouse, Nine Deaths Demon Police, Rushue had some dealings with her in her previous life. Rushue even personally killed this female officer before. It was this encounter that revealed to Rushue the peculiar evolutionary ability of the Nine Deaths Demon Police. Reviving after death is much stronger than ordinary talents. The most crucial point is that after dying she can strengthen herself, which is incredibly extraordinary. Other talents may be strong, but once a person dies, that's it. But this policewoman is different. She can resurrect multiple times, which is a talent many dream of having. However, this human race powerhouse from Jianghai City had rather poor luck. The time Rushue killed her was already her 9th death. Though the Nine Deaths Demon Police in Jianghai City wasn't as powerful as Rushue, who was an empress in the previous life, she had reached the Emperor realm, counting as one of the top-tier powerhouses post-apocalypse. Jianghai City producing such a top-tier powerhouse is not easy, mainly because her ability is incredibly extraordinary. Reflecting on her memories from her previous life, Rushue couldn't help but smile. I wonder if, after rebirth, I can meet that woman with a peculiar talent. It is extremely difficult to meet someone in the vast sea of people, let alone in an apocalypse where anyone could die at any moment. Although Jianghai City isn't huge, it's not a small city either. So meeting each other might not be easy. Rushue estimates that it's hard to encounter her again after rebirth. I never imagined someone could possess the ability to resurrect. If I could encounter her earlier, perhaps I could consider recruiting her. Ji Rushue pondered secretly. After the blood moon night of the apocalypse, the enhancement of human survivors mainly depends on their awakened evolutionary abilities. The more outstanding the awakened ability, the more likely one could be a top-tier powerhouse in the future. Someone like the 9 Deaths Demon Police, who possesses resurrection ability and can strengthen herself several times after resurrection, are indeed rare. Moreover, this female officer truly reached the Emperor realm and became a top-tier powerhouse in her memory. With such extraordinary ability, the 9 Deaths Demon Police should have gone further. The Emperor realm should just be a transitional phase for her kind of person. Yet perhaps due to her personality, she wasted too many precious opportunities to resurrect in the early apocalypse. If she had adapted to apocalypse life earlier, begun enhancing her power as early as possible, preserving the precious resurrection opportunities for later, she had the chance to break through to the Emperor realm. Breaking through to the Emperor realm would mean being a top-tier powerhouse on this planet. If she were ordinary, it wouldn't matter, but a person with Emperor-level potential is indeed worth recruiting and controlling. As for the talent ability of the zombie daddy, Ji Rushue cannot be completely sure. In her memory, Jianghai City hasn't actually produced particularly strong zombies. This means that according to the evolutionary trajectory of her previous life, her zombie daddy is likely to encounter various life-threatening crises later. By recruiting some talented powerhouses, she can better protect the safety of the zombie daddy. After confirming her current location, Ji Rushue returned the file she had dug out back to their original place with ease and then felt relieved to return her bed, sitting cross-legged to start cultivating. As Ji Rushue's power breached further, the operation speed of the glazed breathing technique also accelerated. Ji Rushue's sensitivity to the energy factors in the air had become more acute than before. A large amount of energy factor merged into Ji Rushue's body, continuously tempering her currently somewhat petite physique. Most of these energy factors were used to strengthen Ji Rushue's telekinesis. Perhaps it's because of cultivating the glazed breathing technique, Ji Rushue absorbed a large amount of energy factors from the air, so her growth is slightly faster than ordinary infants. Thus, Ji Rushue cultivated for a long time. After another cycle had circulated within her body, she opened her eyes slowly. But looking at the empty room around her, Ji Rushue couldn't help but feel a bit puzzled. Zombie Daddy has been out for quite a long time. Why hasn't he returned yet? Could it be that he went out to gather supplies again? Just the supplies downstairs are sufficient for a long time. I hope there won't be any accidents. Since knowing her current location is Jianghai City, Ji Rushue has become more concerned about Zombie Daddy's safety. Because currently Zombie Daddy has human consciousness and might possess some special talent ability, this kind of zombie should logically become increasingly powerful. But in her previous life, no such existence was found in Jianghai City, so there's only one possibility that her zombie daddy most likely faced danger. Ji Rushue stood up and walked to the door. Hearing no sound or movement downstairs, she thought for a moment and quietly opened the door to sneak downstairs. This time, Ji Rushue went directly to the 5th floor, where she discovered clear signs that the door had also been pried open. When Ji Rushue opened the door and walked inside, she was immediately shocked by the scene in the room. The 2 rooms on the 5th floor were identical to those on the 6th floor, with a massive pile of resources, primarily food and water. There were also various baby clothes, toys, and the like, with a particular abundance of baby supplies. There was no doubt these were all prepared by the zombie father for her. Looking at the mountain of supplies, Ji Rushue felt an even greater shock in her heart compared to before. She was deeply moved, realizing the zombie father had done so much behind her back. She never expected that what she saw on the 6th floor was merely the tip of the iceberg. Now it seemed she had underestimated the special abilities of the zombie father, who had silently transported so many supplies. Ji Rushue suddenly had a new idea and continued to head downstairs. As she expected, The locks on the doors of the rooms on the fourth and third floors had also been forcefully pried open, and a large amount of supplies was piled inside each. Ji Ruxue was dumbfounded, unable to believe that her father had nearly filled the entire building during this time. Could it be that every time her father went out, he brought back everything usable from the vicinity? Who would have thought the zombie father had such a hoarding instinct? Others might stockpile a lot, but her zombie father stockpiled an entire building. Ji Ruxue was increasingly moved, feeling that all these supplies were her father's love, the foundation the zombie father had built for her. No, to be precise, the mountain of supplies he brought back. Ji Ruxue smiled and continued heading downstairs. But as soon as she reached the second floor, her expression changed instantly. Ji Ruxue sensed a very fierce and formidable aura, completely different from that of ordinary zombies. What was going on? Could there be an evolved zombie downstairs? Ji Ruxue quickly lightened her steps and quietly moved to the balcony on the second floor. Looking down from the window, she indeed saw a being with an extremely robust physique and a powerful aura. Depeng, holding two hammers, was guarding the entrance of the building, looking very much like a gate god from afar. What's going on? Why is there a tank-type zombie downstairs? Ji Ruxue's pupils contracted. She hadn't anticipated an evolved zombie appearing right below her and the zombie father. Strangely, how did her father manage to go out with such a strong, evolved zombie guarding downstairs? Oh, right. She almost forgot that the zombie father was also an evolved zombie. With this in mind, Ji Ruxue was sure her father's awakened ability must be the Earth Escape ability. The Depeng guarding downstairs made Ji Ruxue more certain of Lu Chuan's awakened talent. Ji Ruxue believed that only an Earth Escape talent could allow the zombie father to slip out unnoticed in front of an evolved zombie. And only such an Earth Escape talent could enable her zombie father to transport so many supplies back in a short time. Ji Ruxue didn't alarm the Depeng at the entrance and stealthily returned to the seventh floor. Though she had already advanced to a second-tier ability, with telekinesis and time control as her talents, even a first-tier evolved zombie couldn't do much to her. However, Ji Ruxue had no intention of engaging in combat with it. Having confirmed the zombie father's talent ability, Ji Ruxue felt very happy. Although the Earth Escape zombie's combat ability wasn't particularly prominent and might not become a future Corpse King, its survival ability was top-notch, which relieved Ji Ruxue greatly. Since Dad is an evolved zombie, that simplifies things. I need to find ways to hunt more evolved zombies for him to devour their crystal cores and evolve. This way, even with the Earth Escape talent, he can become a powerful zombie. Thinking of this, Ji Ruxue nodded to herself and began planning. Soon, she would take down that big guy on the first floor, especially with such a strong being guarding outside, making it very inconvenient for her father to come and go. She could still use the crystal core of the evolved zombie to further enhance her father's strength. Thinking of this, Ji Ruxue also recalled the formidable Beast Emperor in Jianghai City. The White Bear, known among survivors as the Thunderous Roar, became extremely ferocious after its evolved mutation. In her previous life, Ji Ruxue had heard that this Thunderous Roar wreaked havoc in Jianghai City. Several relatively stable large human survivor bases were destroyed by this giant bear. She decided that, in the future, if she ever encountered this giant bear, she would take it down as a way to protect the people. Moreover, the crystal core of Thunderous Roar, this mutated fierce beast with potential to become Beast Emperor, would surely benefit her father. Lu Chuan, who was currently fighting lightning, had no idea that his great general was now on his precious daughter's hunting list. After all, Lu Chuan could hardly imagine that a baby who was recently lying motionless in a crib and had just learned to walk a few steps could actually open the door and go down the stairs by herself. After battling with lightning for a long time, their sharp machetes had turned the surrounding greenery into a scene like fallen leaves sweeping in the autumn wind. Looking at the agile-type zombie wielding dual knives in front of him, Lu Chuan nodded in satisfaction. After a bout of fighting, his combat skills had greatly improved. controlling Lightning to return to building number 5 with him. Chuan left Lightning downstairs with Depang to guard the door, while he went upstairs to shower. Even though he was a zombie now, he still lived with a little one. If it were the first month of the apocalypse, Chuan wouldn't have cared about cleaning up as long as there weren't too many bloodstains on him. But today was different. With a little baby by his side, Chuan had to wash clean every day. Since he had gathered a large amount of resources through corpse puppets, the precious drinking water others valued was now stacked up in his building. One reason was to prevent bacteria, because little Chi-Chi's resistance was not as strong as an adult's, so hygiene and safety had to be prioritized. Another reason was that Chuan didn't want his body odor to affect little Chi-Chi at close quarters. However, Chuan noticed that as he kept evolving, the zombie traits on his body seemed to have become less apparent than before. The ferocious scar on his shoulder had even gradually healed after absorbing crystal cores. Looking in the mirror, he felt that although he was still a zombie, his appearance wasn't as bad as it used to be. After washing up, Chuan changed into a simple and clean shirt and even sprayed that faint-scented branded perfume. When he returned to the 7th floor, he discovered that little Chi-Chi had fallen into a deep sleep on the sofa. The little one looked very peaceful and serene, lying there like a little angel that attracted everyone's affection. Even though Rushua had already broken through to the 2nd tier through the glazed breathing technique, she was still just a little baby. Under normal circumstances, a baby of Rushua's age would be doing well just to crawl back and forth on a bed. Yet, Rushua could now crawl up and down 7 flights of stairs all by herself. She was simply the Valkyrie among infants. But after all, the original strength of the body was too weak, and even though breaking through to the 2nd tier mainly enhanced telekinesis, the boost to physical strength was not particularly evident. After crawling back to the room, Rushua soon fell into a deep sleep. Looking at the adorable little Chi-Chi on the sofa, Chuan decided that since the little one could already walk on the ground, it was time to take her out for some fresh air. Always staying indoors, without anyone able to communicate with her normally, and with the windows boarded up, Chuan was really worried that such a closed environment would affect little Chi-Chi's personality. Moreover, as he evolved in strength, the zombies in Sunshine District had already been cleared out by his corpse puppets. Chuan selected some with intact limbs and robust physiques to replenish his team of corpse puppets, and the rest he destroyed. After all, the apocalypse was never short of zombies. Even if his corpse puppets were killed by evolved zombies, he could just control a few from the streets. The safety of the district mattered most. Over time, Chuan had familiarized himself with the surrounding terrain. Though the Sunshine District was an old community, it also had an enclosed environment. By then, he could let Depang guard the district gate with dual hammers while Lightning secretly followed to ensure little Chi-Chi's safety. There was no longer anyone in Sunshine District who could pose a threat to the little one, especially since he would be by little Chi-Chi's side. Even going out for a breath of fresh air wouldn't be risky. Not long ago, Chuan was worried about survival in the apocalypse. But now, having controlled 2 evolved zombies in succession, his confidence had grown significantly. The following days passed very peacefully. Chuan continued to dispatch corpse puppets around the area to act like surveillance cameras, patrolling everywhere or searching for supplies. Little Chi-Chi practiced standing and walking at home every day, or held a learning machine to practice speaking, communication, and handwriting. In a few days, little Chi-Chi's progress was astonishing, making Chuan increasingly feel that his daughter was simply a prodigy. Meanwhile, Chuan practiced daily in the open space of the community, engaging in battles with Lightning. As an agile-type zombie, Lightning, wielding dual knives, was Chuan's best sparring partner. In the course of the few days' confrontations, Chuan's combat experience skyrocketed, greatly enhancing his use of various fighting techniques and the flexibility of his body. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, a massive roar came from the sky, and Chuan quickly hid under a big tree, cautiously looking up. A military green helicopter flew across the sky. Chuan saw sheets of paper scattering densely from above. The helicopter was dropping leaflets. Initially thinking the army had been overrun, Chuan was surprised to see a helicopter entering the city after all this time. He picked up the information on one of the leaflets and realized that not just Jianghai City, but the entire world had fallen. The military of Jianghai City had established a survivor base in a township outside the city. The leaflet primarily urged survivors everywhere to voluntarily head to the survivor base. Moreover, Chuan noticed that the leaflet specifically mentioned human evolvers to inspire the remaining humans to hold out hope for life. It seems that after all this time, the military has regained its footing and has even established a survivor base. Chuan observed the information on the leaflet briefly before tossing it aside. Obviously, as he was a zombie, the human survivor base had nothing to do with him, as meeting humans would probably result in them trying to shoot him right away. In the 7th floor bedroom, Ji Rushue also heard the commotion from the plane and quickly used her telekinesis to obtain one of the leaflets. Seeing the information on it, Ji Rushue sneered coldly. Ji Rushue recalled that in her past life, she had hope in humanity in the early days of the apocalypse and joined a human survivor base. But after entering, Ji Rushue discovered that even in such large human survivor bases, darkness still prevailed. With the progression of the apocalypse, the original public order and social conduct of equality had long since been overturned. Evolvers became the elite, and the stronger one's abilities, the better the treatment they received, while ordinary survivors could only become the lowest level of workforce. The upper echelon of the survivor base could drink red wine, eat steak, and live in the most cozy and comfortable environments, while ordinary survivors had to huddle in cold and damp communal dormitories, receiving only fixed, minimal supplies. The crucial issue was that even amid the apocalypse, humans couldn't unite to resist the zombies, always scheming and plotting against one another. In her past life, before Ji Rushue had grown strong, she was once plotted against by rogues and nearly perished in the corpse tide. Glancing at the leaflet in her hand, Ji Rushue sneered and tossed it away. In her view, living among such scheming humans wasn't as worthwhile as staying by her zombie dad's side. At least her zombie dad wouldn't betray her. Dad went out to do something again? Why has he been so often away from home lately? Ji Rushue opened her eyes from cultivation and realized that her zombie father was not in the room again. Ji Rushue had gotten used to the time spent with her zombie father, but recently he was often not at home, leaving her a bit puzzled. Especially after confirming that her zombie father was an evolved zombie, she became even more curious about what he did every day when he went out. Left alone in the room, Ji Rushue felt rather bored and restless. While sitting on the sofa, Ji Rushue suddenly thought of something. She then ran to a drawer and pulled out a large black telescope. This was left by the original owner of the room. When Ji Rushue found the house contract before, she also discovered this. Holding this huge telescope, Ji Rushue excitedly pushed a small stool to the balcony, then used her hands and feet to climb onto the stool. The black telescope was very large, and Ji Rushue's current body was just that of a small baby. The black telescope was almost as wide as her head, so Ji Rushue couldn't view normally and had to use one eye to look. The little one kept peering through the telescope at the outside, looking very comical and cute. In the telescope's view, the outside city was a scene of utter ruin. Not far away, there were still raging fires burning. After all, the zombie crisis erupted too suddenly. Many people were still working or driving their cars when they suddenly transformed into zombies, resulting in numerous explosions in the city. There simply weren't enough firefighters. So many of the fires were quenched by the heavy rains that followed. Yet even so, the explosions caused by the zombies continued, with large fires flaring up intermittently. Thick black smoke gathered over the city, making Jianghai City appear extremely dilapidated. On the streets, horrifying and terrifying zombies roamed aimlessly. Ji Rushue scanned persistently with the telescope, but couldn't find any sign of human survivors. It's all zombies everywhere, no sign of any human survivors. Seeing the devastation before her, Ji Rushue sighed helplessly. It was indeed exactly the same as the world she lived in her past life, without any change. Indeed, in the early stages of the zombie apocalypse, the city was filled only with endless death. Why did that big guy go to the entrance of a district? Rushua noticed that the tank-type evolved zombie in the telescope, which she usually saw downstairs, had moved to the entrance of the Sunshine District. Its massive iron hammer stood by its side, almost like a gate god. That's good. Although she's not sure why the big guy suddenly went over there, at least without it blocking the entrance, her zombie dad can come and go more easily. Rushua had accepted that Chuan had awakened the Earth escape ability, so she always believed that with such a tank-type evolved zombie around, Chuan had to solve going in and out through Earth escape. Rushua continued using the telescope to search for Chuan's figure, but perhaps due to the angle, she couldn't overlook the entire district, so she didn't spot his figure. Unable to find her zombie dad, a trace of boredom and disappointment flashed in Rushua's eyes. Surrounded by ruins and zombies, there was nothing new to see. Rushua put the telescope back, feeling a bit disappointed, and returned to the sofa to continue her cultivation. In her current situation, besides cultivation, there was nothing else she could do every day. Little did Rushua know that in a corner she couldn't see, Chuan was in the midst of a high-level duel with lightning. Bang! 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 The sound of blades clashing was exceptionally sharp, as Chuan's machete clashed non-stop with lightning's steel blade. Sparks erupted in all directions, and their mighty blade auras sliced through the air, generating a whistling sound that made one's scalp tingle. Lightning's movements, as always, were unbelievably swift. The shimmer of the blades wielded flickering unceasingly. However, due to continuous battles with it recently, Chuan's fighting skills had improved dramatically. After daily high-intensity training, Chuan progressed from initially only being hit passively to barely parrying later on. Now, with significant improvement in combat skills, Chuan could battle lightning on equal terms. Although he was inferior in speed compared to lightning, excellent combat skills made up for this aspect. Purely from the standpoint of combat skills, Chuan had already surpassed the opponent. As for power and speed, they couldn't be enhanced solely through training. Only by relying on the crystal core could he evolve. However, given equal physical conditions, Chuan was confident that he could defeat the opponent in a few turns. Looking at the machete in his hand, Chuan nodded with satisfaction. Indeed, the hard training during this period had not been in vain, as this high-pressure combat training rapidly enhanced his strength. Today's practical training could just about end. Little Chi-Chi has probably woken up, and it's time to go back and make her a meal. Chuan nodded with satisfaction, then prepared to return home for a bath. Just as he was about to leave, a thought struck him, prompting him to switch his perspective to Depang. At the entrance of Sunshine District, a few sneaky silhouettes suddenly appeared. These 4 silhouettes were Zhao Lin, 2 police officers, and that middle-aged man who drove the large truck. They sneaked to the vicinity of Sunshine Home, evading zombies as they went, intending to drive the truck and escape from here. However, when they saw Depang, a massive figure standing at the community gate, Zhao Lin and the others were all startled. The other officers and the truck driver immediately wanted to retreat. Having encountered evolved zombies before, they knew its combat power was incomparable to regular zombies. Nonetheless, Zhao Lin insisted on continuing the action. Don't be afraid, everyone. The truck is just inside. It's our hope of leaving the city. We've encountered these big guys before while scavenging for supplies. I'll draw them away. Tank-type zombies, although extremely strong, had a flaw. Their size was simply too large. Zhao Lin, with her slender figure, could easily run into narrow passages to evade. Silently, Zhao Lin appeared near Depang, picked up a stone from the roadside, and threw it directly at Depang, aiming to lure the zombie away. Is it that policewoman? Chuan, after switching perspectives, recognized Zhao Lin in front of him, but he couldn't understand why Zhao Lin, instead of looking for supplies near the police station, came all the way to Sunshine Home. Zhao Lin was also bewildered. Normally, the evolved zombie should be charging at her now, but Depang stood motionless. After throwing several more stones without a response from it, Zhao Lin decided to pull out her gun. When Lu Chuan saw this, he was instantly furious. Although he didn't know her purpose, if she dared to aim a gun at his corpse puppet, there was only one outcome: death. What's going on? Why did that plane fly away? We've been waiting for so long, finally seeing a plane, and it just left without stopping. Damn it! We've held out for so long in the apocalypse, and the plane wasn't even here to rescue us. When the buzzing in the sky was first heard, the survivors in the police station were extremely excited. Everyone thought that after the apocalypse had lasted so long, they'd finally be rescued by the military, so they rushed outside immediately. But as everyone waved their arms on the ground and waited for a long time, the plane just flew away without stopping at all. It wasn't here for them. If they hadn't seen the plane, it might have been easier to accept. Watching it come and go caused many of the survivors present to nearly break down, cursing aloud continuously. Watching the departing helicopter, everyone felt incredibly disappointed and angry. A flash of helplessness appeared in Zhao Lin's eyes, but everyone still picked up the flyers to take a look. Great! It's a survivor base. We are saved. I knew it. Humanity couldn't have all perished. There's still a powerful enough force to establish a survivor base. The base is just outside the city where there are fewer zombies. Maybe there are warm rooms and plenty of food there. Let's set off for the survivor base too. The survivors, who were very disappointed just moments ago, became excited after reading the information on the flyers, reigniting hope. However, these ordinary people were unarmed and powerless, so they quickly turned their attention to Zhao Lin and the police force members. Officer Zhao, you are the police. It's your duty to protect our safety. You must escort us to the survivor base. Exactly. We don't have any guns. You have to protect us. The survivors spoke with a sense of entitlement, as if protecting their lives in the apocalypse truly was Zhao Lin's and the others' responsibility. Hearing the survivors' words, the other officers present immediately became displeased. Are you crazy? If you want to die, don't drag us with you. Idiots! Look at where that survivor base is. It's so far from our precinct. We might already have been eaten by zombies before we arrive. Exactly. You hide inside every day, barely eking out an existence. While we risk our lives outside, of course you don't find it dangerous. Initially, there were many more officers than there are now, but due to their duty, a large number of officers went out for search and rescue as the apocalypse's danger arrived. They underestimated the zombies' strength, resulting in a significant loss of manpower. Even while collecting supplies over time, surviving officers unavoidably suffered casualties. Yet now these survivors were shamelessly demanding the remaining officers escort them to the survivor base, infuriating the officers. The two sides started arguing again. Seeing the heated argument, Zhao Lin couldn't help but feel a headache, quickly stepping forward to stop it. All right, everyone stop arguing for now. Let's calm down and discuss this properly. I understand everyone wants to leave the city and go to the survivor base. As police officers, we will definitely protect you. I promise to lead you to the base. Once Zhao Lin had spoken, the previously angry survivors immediately cheered, surrounding Zhao Lin. Officer Zhao is a good person. This is what a real police officer should be like. However, the other officers looked very unpleasant, as the journey to the survivor base was very long and what might happen was uncertain. They could easily get surrounded by a corpse tide or even encounter an evolved zombie. Zhao Lin, now is not the time for stubbornness. Don't you realize how dangerous the outside is? How you plan to escort them to the survivor base? We might not make it far before we're eaten by zombies. Seeing her colleagues protesting, Zhao Lin hurriedly started to persuade them. I know it's dangerous to go to the survivor base, but think about it. There are already evolved zombies now. Those guys are very powerful. Staying in the city is not a long-term solution with so many zombies around. It will only become more dangerous. Plus, our supplies are running low and need replenishment. The survivor base is outside the city, away from the huge corpse tide, giving us a much higher survival chance than staying in the city. After hearing Zhao Lin's persuasion, the officers one by one looked serious and fell silent. Everyone barely managed to reach a compromise, then started making plans. It's a very long distance to the survivor base. It's impossible to walk there. Firstly, we must find some vehicles for transportation, preferably with a high chassis and solid construction. The zombie apocalypse struck so suddenly that many vehicles were abandoned or exploded on the road. Plus, the chance of encountering zombie attacks on the way was high, demanding a lot from any vehicles used. Ideally, we could get our hands on some large trucks with high chassis and heavy bodies. They could drive right over zombies blocking the way. Zhao Lin analyzed with a frown, and the abandoned vehicles on the road could be directly rammed aside. A large truck would fit all of us inside. We just need one heavy-duty truck. After hearing Zhao Lin's plan, a middle-aged man among the survivors raised his hand. Officer Zhao, if you need a truck, I can help. Before the apocalypse, I drove long-distance transport trucks. But the apocalypse happened so quickly, my truck isn't nearby. It's parked in my house. Zhao Lin was thrilled to hear this, not expecting to find a truck driver among the survivors. Solving the truck problem could greatly increase everyone's chances of survival. Zhao Lin quickly asked, "Where's your house? Let's bring the truck back as soon as possible." Not far from the police station, my house is in the Sunshine District. Meanwhile, in a basement somewhere, there were nearly 20 survivors living here, both men and women. The basement was very dark, piled with a lot of feces and urine, filled with a foul smell. Various supplies were thrown around haphazardly, and the surrounding environment was extremely messy and dirty, with ventilation issues causing an utterly nauseating smell inside. Gang, there's good news. Why are you shouting? Do you want to attract zombies? Believe me, I'll slap you to death. The man called Gang was sleeping, embracing a woman, and he was very displeased to be awakened by his underling. Gang, look, this is a flyer from the helicopter. They've established a survivor base. Zhang, the brothers really can't stay here anymore. Your strength is great. Take us to the survivor base. However, faced with the underling's request, the man just lazily waved his hand. Get lost. Why go anywhere? Outside are zombies everywhere. If you're not afraid to die, go yourself. Before the apocalypse, Gongzi was just at the bottom of society, with no status and ignored by everyone. Now, after the apocalypse, by relying on his strength, he became the leader in the survivor team. Every day he indulges with women, gets the priority on food, and has people around him praising him. In his eyes, this was a godly life. But when he flipped to the back of the flyer, which mentioned information about evolvers among humans, Gongzi's eyes lit up. My divine power surged suddenly a while ago. Could it be? I am a legendary evolver,